live on AOL.
Nope, I got bad news, Adam.
Wait, what?
So AOL, you remember AOL?
Yeah, we can go live on AOL. You've got mail.
Yeah. It doesn't exist anymore.
What?
August 25th or October 20th. Sometime in the not too distant future, the last modem sounds will die forever.
That's sad. That's a part of history.
The kids now, they hear those modem sounds and they're like, man, that sounds cool.
That sounds like old people.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what was great about that is you could get off of the internet sometimes. You could be like being on the internet. You had to make a willful choice to get on the internet, and it would turn everybody else's internet off in the house, and they also wouldn't make phone calls.
Yeah.
Unless somebody beeped in and then kicked you off of the internet.
Whoops.
I never had AOL. Also.
Really?
When I went to Alaska for a work trip one time, they gave me an AOL CD, and they were like, "Hey, if you need to log in for anything, you can use this." And I was like, cool.
Log in the internet.
Yeah.
Thanks for remoting in from Hawaii on your AOL connection. That's all they got out there, Russ, right?
Yeah, we're AOL only. Yeah.
Dang. Okay. Well, then you're screwed. Get one last podcast in before it all cuts off.
Yeah. You know, the great thing about the AOL times too is that we had limits, like how many hours you had a month, right? And so I think that really limited our connection time too, something we don't really have anymore.
Well, except eventually the number of hours that you got free with your AOL account a month were more than the number of hours in the month. Like they just kept escalating until eventually it was like, hey man, you get 50,000 hours a month. I was like, I don't think there's 50,000 hours in a month.
That's a lot of hours.
It's a lot of hours.
I don't even know how to add up that high. Russ is here. Thank you, Russ, for joining us. This is the best part of the show, according to some people. This is the pre-show of the Full Nerd
endorsement.
It's true. You know, we talk about whatever we wanted to talk about here. We are going to be talking about PC hardware topics. That's what we do.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, I have a present that I brought in. You know, I was on vacation a couple weeks ago. We went somewhere, and then
is this like an apology present for Elena after the
No, well, if she
week?
would have been here physically, actually, I don't know if she is going to like this present.
Wow.
But then my wife went to Texas to see family, and she brought in.
She brings some
Bucky's beaver nuggets.
Wow, are they made with real beavers?
No.
I
don't think so.
Dark place quickly.
These, yeah. I'm glad that's where you went. But
it's a family show.
Thank you. Yeah.
We were so close to just side skirting that.
Yeah.
Look, seven
Adam brushed it anyway.
7 seconds is all you have. Like once we're past 7 seconds,
fine. And we're in the
say
intro.
all the words.
Yeah, we can say all we want.
Yeah.
No, I've got beaver nuggets here. So Bucky's. Russ, do you know what Bucky's is?
I do, yeah.
Okay, Elena,
like
do you know what
Walmart
Bucky's
gas
is?
station.
Yeah.
I do now. I actually had no idea. And then a friend went to Texas like last month and brought back a T-shirt and everything.
Dude, Bucky's is awesome. I've been there physically.
Adam's a fan.
Dude, I'm too much of a fan.
You might be the number one Bucky's fan I know.
I don't know about that. I don't have the Bucky's.
You have the tattoo though.
Yeah,
we can't show that on
can't
the
show
show.
that. Anyway, I have never tried the beaver nuggets, which are a hit among Bucky's lovers. So Lindsay literally smuggled like bags of this in her.
You showed me a suitcase with like 5 bags of Bucky's nuggets.
And
in
so I was hoping Willis was going to be here. We have Alex manning the verticals and horizontals. But I do want to try. You've never tried a nugget? Would you like to try one?
I'm looking at this and I'm desperately trying to figure out what type of food this is. I'm looking at it. It could be like a little donuts. They look like little donuts. It could be something crunchy. I have literally no idea what this is.
Let's
little
try
beaver pork rinds.
This is what we do.
Rinds?
This is what we do in the pre-shows. We talk about food.
Good job
and
opening
weird
that
stuff.
bag. You got it.
So
They do look like cheese puffs or like rinds.
They're
from a
firm.
distance.
They're firm. They're
crunchy. Oh.
You're getting beaver nuggets all over your.
The beaver nugget
Keep
exploded
the beaver
out of my
nugget
mouth.
in your mouth.
It's like a caramel corn, but not popcorn.
Yeah, it's like puffy Cheetos, but caramel, like a.
They're sweet. Okay.
Yeah, they're sweet. They're very sweet. Actually, I have a sweet tooth. These are really sweet.
These are going to really wedge in my teeth. I can tell.
Oh, definitely.
I
Yeah,
need to
Alex,
floss.
would you like to try some nugs? Yeah, you got to try. Straight from Texas. And yes, Sid, friend of the show, Sid Lives, says they have the best jerky selection. They literally have just huge walls of
they do.
jerkies.
As far as the eye can see.
Yeah, I love beaver nuggets. Alex, he's gonna switch to himself. Ooh, nice crunch on the microphone. What do you think?
Yeah.
Maple,
It's maple.
caramel. Yeah.
Yep.
Elena,
It's
do you
a
like maple stuff?
Cheeto.
Only like lightly. When it gets really
Wow.
heavy.
I don't think you're gonna like this one. Russ, do you like maple stuff?
Yeah, it's all good. I'm more savory though. I wish that was kind of more, pork rindy tasting. I think I would like that.
Don't
better.
worry.
Maybe
They have other stuff there as well for
Yeah,
you.
they have muskrat nuggets too. Those are the savory ones.
Anyway, check the ingredients. Made with real beaver. Yep, it's true.
Says right there on the label.
Right there on the lab. Contains soy and beaver.
So I tried a novelty food this week.
What'd you try?
Well,
Oreos?
No Oreos this time. They Kellogg has paired up with some ice cream conglomerate to make a dairy dessert flavored that are based on cereal flavors and like waffles.
Oh,
so we tried the Eggo waffle and the Fruit Loops ice cream.
is the Eggo waffle maple?
It's like a mapley. It's like a maple with chunks of waffle in it.
Okay,
It was okay. It's a little mapley for me, but the kiddo really liked it.
Oh, okay.
It's like fake maple.
Do you think the kiddo would like?
She would go ham on those.
Okay, take her home some.
The Fruit Loops though, really a nightmare. It's like gritty and like ground up. It's like ground up crumbs
In
of
your ice
cereal
cream?
all in the ice cream, and it makes it kind of a gross green color. It's not. I'm anti.
So stay away from that. That's
Avoid
Will's.
the Fruit Loops.
That's Will's review.
I also think Fruit Loops kind of suck just in general. So
Wow, hot take.
takes, yeah.
Hot take. Alex, do you mind panning this way a little bit? Camera left. Russ, thanks for joining us. Somebody says it's early in Hawaii. It's 8 a.m.
It's 8 a.m., but it's all good. I actually came for the pre-show, so I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah.
I'll stick around for the rest.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I like
Oh,
the
good.
I appreciate
yeah.
that, Adam, and I can't talk to each other for 2 hours.
Yeah.
anymore.
No, we've got Elena. She's got to deal with us. Elena, I do have to do a quick check-in. It's been a week. How were you feeling after what happened last week? During
I mean, you're just lucky I'm not sitting there in person because there might be a shiv involved.
Wow.
Yep.
She's so angry.
All right,
You
still feeling it.
Yeah.
I just, like I said last week, Clementine will remember this.
You realize it wasn't my fault.
It's 100% your fault.
100% your fault.
No,
Yeah.
you're the one who
It's
brought it up.
100% your fault.
No,
it's 100%.
I had moved away from the
100%
10
your
I
fault.
paved the road. You drove down it.
I already have started my document for next year. There's going to be planning involved.
Is Adam back at the number one spot on your list of people to kill?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Not yet.
That's good.
Number 3 or 4.
That's good.
I mean, our HR department, there's a lot of
fair.
bureaucracy involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You gotta fill out the appropriate forms, I guess, first.
Yeah. Well, we're here. How are the hamster wheels running?
They're spinning. We
Yeah?
got vertical. We got horizontal wheels. We're ready to go.
Okay. Good. Sweet. How's everyone feeling? Everyone ready to talk about some computer stuff?
Yeah.
I guess we might.
Seems like the
We might.
appropriate thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't ship any beaver nuggets to you, Russ. Maybe I'll try.
That's all good.
Try to figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Get you a Bucky's
Probably-
gift bag. I also got Lindsay got me a Bucky's keychain
Oh, that's
and then
pretty
a
good.
pin. Yeah.
Is it plastic or
Nope.
metal?
It's die cast. Is that?
You should take that off and glue it on the back of a laptop or your phone or something. So
Well, no,
everybody
this
knows.
is my this is the first time I'm using on the podcast this Linux based System 76.
Wait, is this the full Linux? We're both Linux today?
Oh yeah, you're Linux. I'm Linux.
Yeah. Last week
Russ,
I crashed. I
are you a
had to
Linux
go to
person? How do you feel about Linux?
I'm a SteamOS person, but I'm running Windows here.
Okay.
Okay.
Still time.
Yeah.
2025. You're
2025
Linux,
is the
that's
year
what
of
we say over
Linux.
here.
So
There's still time for
yeah,
it.
there's still time.
Is this a plug for your new podcast?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not gonna. Yeah, we don't have any details.
Yeah.
It was gonna launch this Friday, but we just talked about pushing it back because
Look,
we're not
things
completely
are-
ready. So
yeah.
next Friday.
You can't hurry. You can't hurry this kind of.
Yeah. This
intense Linuxy
genius
flavor.
this genius
Yeah, I don't know
podcast
if
series.
You're going too far.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. But it is there. It is there. Okay. Are we ready?
Yup.
I
You write an
think
intro
I'm
this
ready.
week?
I didn't. I'm just
Perfect.
gonna
Just
wing
wing
it.
it.
Let's see how it goes. The beaver nuggets are gonna
Right.
fuel me. I can just smell it. The maple wafting over here. All right, cool.
Gross.
You ready?
I'm gonna
Alex, you ready?
do the whole thing. I'm pressing buttons
Okay.
today.
Alex, you ready?
You working the keys on Will's 4.0 over there?
Look
Oh,
at
come on. That's rude.
What?
That's rude. Here we go. In this episode of The Full Nerd, we talk about AMD domination. Thunder.
Nailed it.
I was Steam Deck 2. Duh, that was the other
Yep.
thing. Okay. I had the Thunderbolt thing ready. Okay, here we go. In this episode of The Full Nerd, we talk about AMD Domination, Thunderbolt 5 eGPUs coming soon, and Steam Deck 2? Question mark? There we go. Got a second take. I'll take it soon.
Good.
And welcome to episode 360. We've done the full turn here on The Full Nerd.
One revolution.
One revolution around the podcast sphere, I guess is what we've done. The Full Nerd is the best podcast about PC building news that you can get on the internet. I am your fill-in host, Adam Patrick Murray, but I am not alone. I have a whole gang of people here. First up is longtime co-host Elena Yee, filling in for Bradley Charkis.
Yeah, that's me. I look like Brad.
Yeah. We really still need to get you a beard one of these days. Also joining us on the line is one Russ from Retro Game Core. Hello, Russ.
Hello.
Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me on. Elena, you can borrow my beard anytime if you need it.
Oh, okay.
There you
Good
go.
to know.
Perfect. Just ship it in from Hawaii. Thank you for joining us early. I do need to say once again, if you don't know Russ and the Retro Game Core coverage he does over on YouTube and his website, retrogamecore.com, is that the URL?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go follow, because you are one of my favorite journalists in this space, in the tech sphere right now. So I'm glad you can join us. We're going to talk about some cool stuff. Also here at the table with me is one Will Smith. You're okay as well.
Thanks. I think you're fine too.
Yeah.
Totally adequate.
And controlling the upgraded verticals and horizontals is one Alex Estevez.
Heyo.
Hello, welcome. We just tried some Bucky's Beaver Nuggets in the pre-show. Is it
not sponsored?
No, not. Well, I wish. Oh, we need to talk to Big Bucky. Yeah, I would love to get a Bucky's sponsorship.
Do we have? Is Bucky's? How far would I have to drive to go to a Bucky's?
Well, the closest one to us that isn't. It's not open yet, but there is one opening in Phoenix. So I think that would be the closest one to us.
Oh, huh.
It's not going to be open by then.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, unfortunately. No, I think
crap.
it takes time to build a Bucky's. You know what it also takes time to do, and I'm going to do it here in the pre-show, is to make scented computer parts. Now you know I love scented computer parts. We've been talking about this for a while, and thanks.
Welcome to our new favorite segment, Adam Smells Things.
Yes, Adam smells things. This is what we do.
And so does Will, apparently.
Yeah, I get to smell things too.
Unfortunately, Elena's not here to smell this.
Sorry,
but
Elena.
Yeston, I reached out to them. Thank you to one Steve Burke from Gamers Nexus for making the connection, because I said, Steve, I really need to talk to these people at Yeston to get me a GPU that smells like something. And he did.
What does it
came
smell
through.
like, Adam?
I don't know. That's what we're going to do live here.
Great.
I got this package in actually a couple weeks ago now. And they're like, hey, where's the coverage? And I'm like, well, I'm waiting to open it live on a podcast. But we couldn't do it last week because, we had
serious
stuff
business.
going on. Yeah.
Do you know what my least favorite section in like a Macy's or department store is? Like when you have to walk through
The perfume
section to get to the rest of the store.
Oh, gosh.
Well, but that's because it's like an overload of like everything.
Oh no, it's not just the department though. I recently made an online purchase from Macy's and I bought like one piece of clothing and I opened the bag and I was like, "Oh, why does it?" And then like they had put in perfume samples with this thing.
Oh.
It's so terrible.
From Macy's specifically?
Yeah, no thanks.
Okay, that's funny. Well, here
Okay.
I'm going
Here,
to close
I'll
my
move
laptop
the
for
Beaver
now. Yeah,
Nuggets
move
out
the
of the
Beaver
way.
Nuggets. I'm opening the box. Just see, I took off the shrink wrap for audio listeners. I can't smell anything emanating from the box
That's probably
itself.
a good sign.
This
You think it has
is
to heat up to make the smell?
yeah, it probably does. Well, I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. This is, by the way, sorry, audio listeners. This is the Yeston RTX 5070.
Is this available in the U.S.?
This is a
Or is
great
this
question.
Import only.
I believe these. Yes, I believe Yeston is trying to sell in the U.S. So this is the Sakura edition. Oh, look at this. They poked out their name in the little
like that.
foam. That's kind of nice,
That's
right?
nice.
Cool laser cutting.
Oh, and look at this. It came with
you
a
get
bunch
wifey
of
stickers.
Yeah, it came with a bunch of
Ooh, I like a
stickers.
sticker.
These are actually pretty cute stickers.
You can put that on your phone right
Look,
now.
somebody bent this GPU. It looks a little bent right there.
I mean, they don't have the brace under it. That's
yeah,
why.
exactly. Okay, this is cool. So far, I like the unboxing experience. I see the GPU.
These are on Amazon, just for the record.
Oh, okay, here's the GPU. Let's see. Can't smell
who's the
anything
seller?
while it's in the
sealed in a
package.
bag.
I know. I'm just trying it every step of the way. Okay.
Look, always be testing. That's what we
Yeah.
always
Oh,
say
you know,
here.
and look at this. This is an upgrade. They've got a little pull
Oh, that's
to open
nice.
it up. Usually you have to kind of like cut it or do something.
I just slide my finger in
Yeah,
there.
they've got a little pull tab. So yeah, look at that. Like they really thought about this experience. I appreciate it. So now the GPU is just out and about. It is pretty. Do you like the look of
Actually,
this?
a really nice color.
That's a good. I mean, the white is nice.
Oh, it's
white
upside
GPU
down.
is kind of hard to find often.
It's like
I
a
like
white
the-
and a lavender and a blue.
yeah, I
blue.
like the
Yeah, it's a
wave.
really nice
Yeah,
set of
that's nice.
accents.
Yeah, and the shroud kind of like doesn't symmetrically cover the fans, which is kind
I
of
don't
cool.
know about that.
I like it.
It
The back
looks
plate
nice.
has the character. I don't know if this is this character. Oh, well, you can see the Sakura. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Sakura.
Yeah.
Sakura.
So I don't know if that's the character's
I would
name
assume.
or not.
Yeah.
But I do know that somewhere in this GPU contains a scent stick. Because Steve did a little teardown, so I'm gonna try to find where the stick is. But first, I'm gonna just smell to see if I can smell anything right now. Oh yes, I do smell. Okay, where is that scent stick?
I didn't want to
remem-
say anything, but
oh, maybe I'm just smelling Will.
yeah. I
Whoa.
thought you had just had more cologne.
HR
than usual.
violation.
Man, I like the smell of this. It's like very like. It's
That's a quote. Hold on,
Yeah.
I gotta type this
Yeah.
out for later.
it's like a fresh scent, kind of like a
Like a laundry detergent, like a
No.
softener?
no, but it's a little more flowery though.
I mean, it has a flower cut out on the back, so I'd assume a floral.
Yeah,
scent.
but it's like it's not overdone. Maybe once it warms up, it'll exude some more scent.
Only
but
we had
why
some
don't we
sort
try
of
it?
GPU dock we could put it in to warm it
Yeah,
up.
I will be testing this like the actual performance, but really I'm here to smell it. So really get in there.
So does it have a cherry blossom kind of smell to it? I mean, Sakura is a cherry blossom.
I mean,
I'm not getting cherry blossoms.
Yeah, I'm not getting cherry blossom either. But
I'm
it smells
getting,
good,
like,
right?
A mixture of metal and industrial lubricants and like a little bit of a laundry cleaner.
I don't.
yeah.
But a laundry
not bad.
cleaner is reductive. I don't think it's bad.
I mean,
You know,
I'm a little stuffed up
fresh.
today. I rode BART and had a mask on. And
Ew,
all that,
disgusting.
So, you know.
Yeah,
It's like, what's this? Oh, is that the cable so you can plug in the lights?
the RGB. Yeah,
That's
it's
nice.
a little RGB extension. So yeah, we did it. Finally, peak. This is peak PC hardware. Is a scented GPU. Thank you, Yeston, for sending this over. I will be doing some sort of coverage, not just sniffing this GPU. But man, this really does look nice. Yeah, this is not sponsored, but they did send me this hardware to check it out
And to smell.
and to smell.
Yeah.
That is the goal. They literally were going to send me a different GPU, and I was like, my first question was, does this one smell? And they're like, actually, no. And I was like, okay, I will check that one out, but do you have one that smells as well? So yeah, luckily they did. So I did it.
Congratulations.
I would pay extra money for a scented
Stinky.
GPU.
I mean, the stickers are pretty good too.
The stickers are pretty good. So, okay, that was the pre-show. Well, I finally got my hands on it. I'm happy. We can end this now. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Check back
Yeah,
next week.
We don't need any more stinky hardware.
No,
please.
we do. I need all the stinky hardware. Russ,
Okay, so I have a
oh yeah, no,
I have
Lena,
a question for Will.
Yeah,
Would
hi.
you be willing to have scented products in your PC build if you could customize the scent? Like if there was a cutout on that graphics card where you could put in your own like incense or scent stick and you could choose it. Would you be more into the idea?
I go out of my way to buy things that are unscented, hair products, beard products.
really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I love
Yeah.
scented
Deodorant
products.
Everything.
Really?
Nothing scented. No scents. So I'm going to say no.
Well, you do smell like something.
I mean, you're welcome.
You just like to be all
gotta get
natural.
That's just natural.
I like to all natural. I don't know.
That's just,
I'm,
So
that's just the
personal.
natural.
I'm all about scented things.
Yikes.
Russ, am I alone in this? Do you like scented things?
I think it's all context, right? Like, so if that has a floral scent to it, I don't want to smell that while playing like Call of Duty Zombies. Like I want something earthy,
like a cozy
right?
game?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So I feel like if it was customizable, I would be more into it. I don't know. I once went on, I think it was at Disney World or Disneyland. There was like a Avatar ride where you're riding on one of those like flying animals.
Like
and it was
Avatar the
scented.
movie.
Yeah. And man, it was immersive. It was really immersive, like smelling the beast. And it like got warm as you're riding it. I think this was Disney World. And it was very, very cool. That's the only time I can think of like a scented thing really enhancing an experience.
So I one of the reasons I don't like scented stuff is I'm super allergic to lavender, and it sends me into like an enormous sneezing fit. And a lot of things that are scented have some lavender component, and my nose is delicate enough to like.
You are a
pick the whole
delicate
thing
flower.
up. I am a delicate flower. The other side of this though is that I like one of the worst review experiences I've ever had was when do you remember the piece? There was a PC adapter like 10 or 12 years ago that somebody came out and were like, hey, we're going to make your PC smell like your video games smell like, we're going to make your room smell like the video games that you're playing.
Oh, I do remember
and they had
this.
like a thing that had these wax smell components, and you could make your room smell like cordite or flowers or like farts or bananas. And it was horrible. It was the worst.
What kind of games
product.
are you playing?
Look, man, I like Donkey
No, I
Kong,
don't-
okay?
It's called the game
I-
scent,
Game
by the
set,
way.
that's
Yes.
it. Yeah.
I get where you're coming from, Will. I will say though that like typically like actual like incense or scent sticks are not quite so like artificially obnoxious
Oh, yeah.
as that product. So I do wonder if it would be a little bit more palatable, so to speak,
I don't
if
know.
it was something you could choose.
Well, let me just say, I dropped my car off for scheduled maintenance this morning, and I told them under no circumstances are you to put an air freshener in this car because it like just please.
I didn't
for
know
the
you
love
were
of
so
God, do
hardcore.
not.
Like you are on the other side of me. You're like anti-scent.
As in everything, we're exact opposites.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. I'm young,
yeah.
you're old,
Something like that.
really attractive, you're hideous. It's just, you know.
I mean, that's true, but
Yeah.
I gotta say the last thing about this GPU now that I'm visually inspecting it, it has a white PCB. You see that? That's actually really nice.
I love it.
Yeah.
As somebody who likes a white board,
Yeah.
like white components, it's exciting.
Anyway, we're not here to just talk about scents. We, like I said in the intro here, fumbled it at least once. AMD Domination. That's our first topic. That's what we're going to get to because, you know, Russ, if you don't know Russ, what do you do?
I make videos mostly about handhelds.
Handhelds, not only just the PC variant, but also Linux and
Yeah,
retro, you know, kind of handheld
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, the cheaper stuff, you know, like there's like the low-powered Linux-based ones, mostly using off-the-shelf like computer part or cell phone parts, you know, and then also Android versions, and then you know the top tier is your PC handhelds too. So I cover all three of those.
Nice. I love your coverage. Like I said earlier, thank you for coming on the show. I think the first thing for this AMD Domination to talk about is that I don't know if you've seen a trend, but most of the handhelds use AMD hardware.
Yeah,
Russ,
it's weird.
Russ, why is that?
You know, it all started. It used to be Intel, like GPD, one of the first like handheld makers. They were doing all Intel, and then they switched over to AMD. Right around the time, I don't know my Zens very well, but one of those Zens like upgraded things. So the 5800U, 6800U, and whatnot. Once that started getting into handhelds, it just took over. And then we had this little handheld came out called the Steam Deck that really moved things along too. And yeah, ever since then, it's been very AMD. You know, we have MSI has done a couple Intel handhelds, you know, the Claws, but otherwise it's all been AMD.
Yeah, and I mean there is Intel has a little bit of foothold in some of the retro handhelds that you review. Obviously, there's MediaTek and Snapdragon in those kind of things. But I would call that like a different product line, right? I mean, you're still playing games. It's still handheld hardware, but how? Like, do you feel like that line is blurring, or do you feel like it's still two distinct, separate pieces of hardware?
Yeah, there's still like a full distinction between those. I would consider the older or the cheaper ones to be like SBCs. Like they're more Raspberry Pi kind of esque, right? As opposed to a full on desktop, which does have APUs, and you could call that an SBC single board computer. But yeah, I think there's a big distinction. A lot of it comes down to operating system, you know, and architecture. You know, the Linux ones are all ARM based, you know, the cheaper ones, whereas, you know, x86 for the handhelds, the PCs.
And Elena, you are known to be a mini PC fan, but the most of the mini PCs that you've seen with like Intel NUCs are obviously Intel based. How many of the AMD ones have you messed around with?
Only one, actually. They're not as common. From what's cost my desk, I wouldn't say that I have a comprehensive, thorough grasp of the landscape currently, but in general, they tend to trend very heavily towards Intel.
And do you feel like why do you feel like Intel kind of owns, or not owns, but is more entrenched in the small PC space as opposed
I
to
mean,
the
I think
handheld.
From my perspective, which I would not say is super informed, I think it's a reflection more of what we kind of, one, Intel was the one that pushed the whole NUC idea. And two, they have a lot of dominance in laptops still, right? So I think that's more of a reflection of that because for a while, like these small mini PCs were really being like pushed as a solution for like the corporate side of things, right? So if your customers already know hardware from a certain vendor and they trust that, then it's easier to get them to pick up this new product because they already are familiar with the hardware manufacturer that's, making what's inside of it, right? So if you have customers who are so used to Intel to begin with, it's an easier sell to say like, hey, you need a PC for your signage or display or to like, deploy to a bunch of people who don't need a lot of computing or even laptops, right? So you don't have to pay for the extra screens. Here's Intel hardware in a different form factor. So I think that would be a much easier sell to them than saying like, hey, here's AMD. They haven't been in the laptop space for a while, but we hear good things about them. Do you want to try it? So that's my educated kind of opinion or guess around that. So
Intel,
I think it's just different for versus handhelds, where that space is, I think a lot more of the audience is more willing to look at the product itself as opposed to necessarily what's powering it inside.
And also the gaming focus too. Like a mini
sure.
PC, is mainly thought of traditionally as production kind of stuff. And so it's like, you don't need to worry about gaming, even though, you do cover a lot of gaming context for mini PCs, Russ.
I do, yeah. I probably reviewed about 50 of them, and I would say 45 of them have been AMD, but they're all gaming focused, and I think of the Intel ones as being, productivity and like, corporate machines that can sometimes also play games. And so it's not a huge appeal for me. So I usually stick with the gaming focused AMD ones. And
interesting.
yeah, they're kind of shoehorned into specific manufacturers, like B-Link and Minis Forum and stuff. They're always coming out with the new stuff, but it's gotten to the point where when they offer to send me an Intel one, I usually will say no and say, send me the next AMD one, please.
it's interesting because I think it's the inverse of the home lab situation, right? Where the home lab folks want NX00, 100, 200, whatever CPUs, because they want access to like the quick sync video transcode and stuff like that AMD's kind of weak on. But Intel has all these really reasonably priced low end parts that have really, really poor GPU performance. So I'm really excited to see what happens in like 3 years when the current generation of Intel stuff kind of trickles down and we see Xe GPUs in the $150 to $200 all-in B-Link and Minis Forum type Intel systems, and see if there's any movement in that space.
Well, I guess then, what we're revealing here, I think, is like each use case has a different kind of appeal to it, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So am I wrong then? Is AMD actually dominating, or am I just so gaming handheld focused that it feels like AMD's dominating in these lower end chip spaces, but maybe it's not actually true?
Well, I don't know what the numbers, like we don't cover numbers in that way here really.
Yeah.
But my assumption is that if you look at volume, those the 12th and 13th gen N200 or whatever processors that Intel sells are probably selling enormous numbers of units to like hospitals and you think about all the places that somebody jams a Visa mount computer on the back of a monitor and like they're moving a lot of units there, right? My guess is that in the enthusiast spaces where people are actually consumers are buying these things to buy games, then everything from like you said, the handhelds, the B-Link SER series that we've looked at a couple of times for different Bazite and Steam OS coverage, like those are really capable machines, but they're also a lot more expensive than an otherwise comparable Intel machine, right? It's $600 for one of those SER7s versus 150 or 200 for like a B-Link, comparable speed CPU, comparable RAM configuration, comparable SSD, just crappy Intel graphics instead of good AMD graphics.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's just such a. Yeah. Maybe I'm questioning myself now.
Been watching
thinking
those
that-
Steve videos about how Intel's
yeah,
screwed.
well, yeah. So that is the other thing going on here is that there's plenty of news swirling around. I do have some links into the description. We've wrote about it over on PCWorld. Mark Hochman has done a lot of great stuff over there. I'll just highlight a couple of them. So like one of the former Intel CEOs from the 90s came out and thought that hey, the best way forward is to spin off Foundry. The current CEO right now is theoretically, supposedly having talks with U.S. President Trump about what's going on with Intel currently and how things can go forward. We don't need to get too deep into that kind of stuff, but the general sentiment is that Intel's on the ropes. AMD is just killing it. Which and in the desktop space, the DIY desktop space, AMD CPUs are like the de facto for that kind of stuff. But like.
Outperforming their projections by an enormous amount is what we've heard.
I wouldn't say it's de facto yet, but they're definitely rising, right? So like the last Steam hardware survey, I think they finally crossed the 40% mark. But which means Intel still has the majority.
True.
But it is a big jump compared to 5 years ago. If I remember right, the news article, something like 5 years ago, they were like at 17%.
Yeah.
Closer to 20%.
Like the Phenom days were grim for AMD.
Yeah.
Well, 5 years ago, though, it was still Ryzen. They already had launched Ryzen. I hate to inform you of this.
Oh no!
I hate to
Oh no!
inform you of this one.
You mean 5 years ago? Is it 1999?
Yeah. All right.
Oh no! Well, but I mean, these are trailing indicators, right? So it's like, these are indicators of performance over the last lifetime of PCs. So it's like you have 10-year-old machines in the Steam hardware survey.
And a lot of it does skew laptop.
That's true.
Right. So a lot of these numbers are laptop based because there are a lot of laptop gamers out there. So, I think maybe that's why. Like, I think the desktop numbers might look different, but in a whole.
Yeah. I think another number, you're talking about dominance, right? But we're talking about numbers like sale units, right? But also dominance can be just, sheer power and, something that dominates over the other, right? And I think if you look at like Strix Halo as an APU, I don't think there's anything on the Intel side that can compare to it at this point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the only people that can compare it is like, oh, this is almost like an M4 chip, but that's a completely different thing when it comes to gaming. And so, yeah, something with the Strix Halo is just insane.
Yeah, which we do have a review of the Framework desktop with a Strix Halo chip in it. Mark did a review of it on the website. We also have a video up on PCWorld's channel. I do have that Asus ROG Flow Z13 that has Strix Halo, and then I have this HP ZBook. I don't remember the full name.
Likes.
Yeah, the one that Wendell likes. This also has Strix Halo in it, so like this is a lot of power in a small package. So like it feels like AMD is kind of owning the performance space. Though to be fair, that Intel based, the Lunar Lake based MSI Claw does do pretty well, right?
It does, but it doesn't do Halo. It does Strix Point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a
Not Strix
generation
Halo.
behind, but it does a good job. But Strix Halo is in a world of its own. Problem is the price is also in a world of its own.
Yeah, right.
So,
I mean, would you ever recommend somebody get the Strix Halo for anything gaming related at this point?
I have the Flow Z13, the Asus one, and I show it off on my channel all the time. And every time that I talk about it, I say I also do not recommend it just because of that price point. I'm like, I can't recommend something at that price point, 2,000 plus, just to start with it. It's really hard to say, yes, this is worth getting, compared to a desktop or even a laptop.
I'll tell, as somebody who used to use those types of laptops for work in the days when they were definitely not as good and they were putting mobile 1080s in those laptops, and it was a bad experience all the way around in terms of heat and noise and all that. Like the ability to have a desktop class PC that fit into a bag I could carry on board a plane with me when I was doing VR development and traveling and doing demos everywhere was worth any amount of money, right? Because the alternative was having a huge giant case that I put a small form factor machine in and all the VR stuff. And I went from having, when I got a Razer that had a 1060 Ti in it, mobile, I was able to carry a bag in a Think case photographer's bag that had a Vive, all the hardware that I needed for that, and the laptop that would run it. And that was like that made it so I could go pitch people in New York for the product that I was selling, which like in that context, spending $2,000 or $3,000 on a laptop was literally nothing, because the first thing that I sold would 10x that I just bill it against that. It was no problem. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. So performance-wise, AMD has a lot of representation from lowest end to the highest end. I mean, we're talking about Steam Deck is relatively old hardware, but it still dominates on that kind of stuff, all the way up to Strix Halo, which is not. I wouldn't necessarily call it a gaming part, but it can obviously game pretty well. But why isn't Intel playing more in this space? Like the Lunar Lake is comparable to what AMD has in that Z range. Like, why are we not seeing more Intel based handhelds, Russ?
I think that the main aspect I've seen is low power performance has been pretty poor on the Intel chips, and I don't have the background to understand why that mechanism is happening. But Strix Halo, again, another great example. That thing is crazy at 7 watts. Like at a very low power profile, that thing can perform really well. And so it almost has that kind of Switch 2 dockable experience where it's still good in a handheld, but then you plug it in. The Switch 2 maxes out at 8 watts in handheld mode, and then goes up to like 22 watts and really increases performance when docked. And I feel like the Z13 or any of these Strix Halo chips have that potential as well of being something that could be this dockable to docked solution where you kind of have everything in one. No need for an eGPU if they get the power profiles right. And I think that they're closer on the AMD side than they've been on Intel. So that's always been the issue with me, is that even the MSI claws, like all the ones I've tested, they're very impressive, but you're pulling around 25, 30 watts to get that good performance, which is just going to kill the battery, even though they have an 80 watt hour battery in the latest MSI claw. And so it's always been an issue for me, is that battery life, which doesn't seem conducive in the handheld.
So you really think it just comes down to battery life?
I think that as a practical use, I think that potentially other manufacturers are like looking at those numbers and saying, no, it's going to kill our product if we can only get an hour of battery life. Let's just go with the AMD one. Will give us an hour and a half to 2 hours of similar performance.
One of the things I'm really curious about just in general, and I wish Valve or someone would give some more insight into this. I'm curious what the playtime on the Steam Deck looks like, right? Like, what kind of games are people playing? Horizon game? Are they playing big AAA games for 2 hours on battery with their Steam Decks? Or because that's not the way I use. Like, if I'm playing a big AAA game, I'm usually streaming it from the other room where it's running on my big giant GPU. Or alternately, what I'm doing is sitting on the couch playing indie games while I have a baseball game or something on. And like last night, my Steam Deck had 30% charge when I fired up Time Flies, which is, by the way, very good. It's a new Panic produced game about being a fly. You fly around in like a 2D world and do fly stuff. It's very like
Mr. Mosquito.
Yeah, Goose Game for flies. Yeah, like Mr. Mosquito, but good.
I love Mr. Mosquito.
And I didn't run out of battery. I played the entire game. It was like 4 hours. I was fine because it's a really lightweight indie game and it doesn't have a lot of it doesn't hit the GPU, doesn't make anything spin up. And like that's the way I use the Steam Deck. I'm playing mostly like lo-fi indie kind of 2D or light 3D stuff.
So there is on the Steam website, they have like a top played list of top 100 games, and it's by playtime. And I just did for the past year, and it's about half and half. So Balatro, Stardew Valley are number 1 and 2, but then 3 is Baldur's Gate 3, then Cyberpunk, then Elden Ring, and then it drops down to Vampire Survivors, Red Dead 2, Hogwarts Legacy, Skyrim, and then Brotato. So it's like half and half.
It's 50-50. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that is this interesting mix for sure. Like, yeah, I mean, but I think that's the great thing about handhelds is that you can play it in so many different kinds of ways.
That's
right?
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I like it. But also me, use case, like I pretty much always like plugged into the wall. I don't. The only time I care about battery life is on a plane. But even then, most of the planes I've been flying have some sort of power that I'm plugged into anyway. So like battery life is just not a big concern for me. Either way, I think that is a good point. AMD does seem to have the wattage for performance edge over Intel. What about NVIDIA? Obviously, NVIDIA makes is processing the Nintendo Switch, and the Switch 2
right?
supposedly I mean, I have one, but I haven't done like theoretical testing, so I'm just following whatever other people have tested. But the performance per watt is pretty astounding for what that thing's doing. Why isn't NVIDIA playing more in the PC handheld space? Russ?
It's a good question. And I think some of it probably is just whiz biz stuff. Like, in the background, who knows what kind of agreements they have with Nintendo in terms of processing those chips and manufacturing them. And then also, I don't know. I don't know if NVIDIA is actually interested in doing that other than the obligation they have with the Switch, which they know basically just prints them money. And so that's the other thing I'm thinking is that it potentially has to just do with priority on their end.
Why bother making mobile GPUs for handhelds when they can use those same bits of sand to make $50,000 AI GPUs?
I mean, but the same thing would apply for the Switch. Like they could have just been like, we don't need to be in the next Switch. Pfft, whatever.
Who knows?
It's volume, though.
Yeah.
It's volume, right? Like
Volume.
that's what Russ is just basically saying, that the Switch is going to sell like millions of units. Whereas I think we were talking before the show, when we were talking about the various handhelds, a lot of them are selling in the thousands, maybe 10,000s, but that's quite a difference in scale. And I can see why if a company as big as NVIDIA, I mean, they have their pet projects, but they don't do a lot of them on the side. And so for them, I think they might have been like, oh, yeah, we're willing to do this side project because it is going to, as I think Will just said, going to print money for us.
153 million Switch 1s shipped.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, like that's still, it's got to pale in comparison to the money they make on AI data center stuff.
Well, but also, I don't know if you're aware of this, but people are a little bearish on AI right now. So they are going to continue hedging. They haven't thrown away the PC market yet, right? They haven't backed out of the PC games
Not yet.
market.
Yeah.
So,
But it's not just purely, I mean, I could see it as them justifying it as marketing as well, right? Because now you have a bunch of people who don't care about the PC space, who are familiar with the name NVIDIA because they know what's in their Switch.
I don't think it's on the box in any way, shape, like you have to be a nerd to know that.
But here's the thing. PC nerds give console nerds such a hard time, but they are still nerds. So a lot of them will dive into the specs of things. They will have, honestly, sometimes, from depending on your perspective, the most hilarious or cutest arguments with each other over hardware specs and things like T-flops and things like that. But they are nerds, and they will engage in their own flame wars over their hardware.
I like how you called it cute.
So you're just saying they're bad nerds, is what I'm hearing.
Nerds who got the wrong message.
Said you can choose the adjective you want to put in there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I don't know. Do we ever? I mean, it is how it is now. Do we ever see it changing? Do we think Intel can turn things around? I mean, well, Intel's got a lot of stuff.
Well, that's a bigger conversation, right? And I wasn't sure how far we were going to stray from the handheld stuff, but I mean,
let's talk about it.
Our friend Steve Burke over at Gamers Nexus, I think, was it yesterday or the day before? He just released a video, about, Intel's current woes and what's going on, kind of recapping all of that. I actually ended up writing about it in the newsletter last week from kind of a different angle. But yeah, they've been downsizing so much. They're streamlining to the point of almost like hunkering down that it's a little concerning. And I actually, I like to fact check myself. So I actually looked up and I realized that I've just been very immersed in an Intel focused space of mini PCs. And it's changed a lot since I've really looked around, and kind of reflecting what we were just talking about in the Steam hardware survey. It's kind of equal now what they like. So obviously Asus having taken over the NUC business, those are all Intel still. But if you look at Minis Forum, B-Link, Geekom, I was wrong. I didn't realize that there was so much parity now almost between the two. And if you look at it closely, Intel's actually the models that are the cheapest. Right?
Yeah.
Like they are the most they have the most inexpensive. They scale the range, but it's not like they're competing with AMD in that lower end, and it's like a reverse of what we saw 5 years ago. So I do think that overall Intel is in a position where they've contracted so much that it is possible for AMD to take that space. whether or not they'll come out of it, I feel like that's kind of what's on the table for us to discuss. But I wasn't sure if we wanted to talk about just from the handheld perspective or the overall perspective, because I think those are
I mean, I think they're
related
tied.
but still different.
Yeah, they're definitely related, though. I mean, yeah.
On the is Intel screwed front.
Somebody did say
Yes.
like you should have
Yes.
titled it this. I strayed away from that because that's like a
It's a
Stephen Gordon thing.
Yeah, specifically.
So I didn't title it that way, but yeah.
Well,
I mean, it is a good question.
They've laid off. Intel has now laid off a bunch of people who they were paying to maintain core open source driver packages for Intel hardware on Linux, which is like that's a choice.
I mean, how far reaching is that going to be?
I mean, it's as always, you know, there's an XKCD for this, right? So there's like the hey, here's the open source software stack that makes some you know, incredibly complicated thing that seems really simple to us, the end users, work. And it's always somebody down like that makes an FPGA driver for something that's embedded in the center of every Intel CPU for the last 20 years, or a WAN driver, or modem drivers, or anything like that. And like this Phoronix thing is a list of all the people that they know that are now like the CPU temperature monitoring driver for Intel CPUs on Linux, unmaintained now. Nobody's maintaining that.
Whoa.
So like it's somebody has to pick this up, and it's or Intel is going to have even bigger problems when we see like part of the reason AMD is doing well in these handhelds right now, and we aren't seeing the fruition of this yet, so I'm rambling. But the fact that they've open sourced a lot of their driver infrastructure for graphics cards and CPU stuff has meant that Valve was able to throw developers at fixing bugs in AMD's graphics drivers and CPU drivers
Because it was open source.
Because it was open source.
And this Intel stuff isn't open source?
Some of it is and some of it isn't.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the things that we're talking about here are open source, but Valve's not going to pick up Intel's slack here because they don't ship a machine that uses the Intel hardware, right? They picked up AMD's slack because, not that AMD has slack in this, sorry, anyway. They picked up AMD's slack because it benefited them directly, and they were able to make the Steam Deck better by fixing problems with previous software implementations. And there's no, like, who's going to pick up Intel's CPU temperature monitoring driver kernel code? I don't know. Like, they're laying it's this typical thing that happens in the Valley right now, where they have a spreadsheet and they look at the people and they look at the seniority and they look at how much money they cost every year, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to cut X number of dollars, and then the person doing the cutting has no idea that this person is going to make Intel CPUs not throttle right on Linux servers, which is an enormous part of Intel's business.
Yeah, so somebody on the Discord too, there was like, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who did it, but compiled a bunch of links to articles like this from Phoronix of like, hey, here are all the different places that Intel has laid people off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's scary. Yeah.
Steve also covers some of this from a higher level perspective. Wow, that's weird. Perspective in his video, talking about just sheer headcount and comparing the numbers of headcount from like 1999 to like, I think their goal with all these current cuts. And it's pretty shocking, honestly, how deep they're cutting.
I mean, do we? I mean, because we're also talking about like jettisoning things like Nook, like they jettisoned Optane, you know, like so they've done
like,
this stuff.
Projects are gone.
Yeah,
bunch
which
of
was in your
software
newsletter
projects,
for sure.
yeah.
Do we feel like this is going to affect? Like, could this affect the X00 series? Like, could you see a point where it's like, oh man, Home Lab has to figure out stuff to do on AMD because Intel just has dropped out of that real low end?
Well, so a big part of the gate on the Home Lab stuff is Plex, and Plex has limited support for GPU accelerated video encode.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they support NVIDIA and Intel, and kind of have had half-assed AMD support for years.
Beep.
Okay. Anyway,
Just for fun.
So like, I don't know if Plex picks. The thing is, Jellyfin supports AMD pretty well out of the box, and Jellyfin seems to be rising. Plex is a little bit waning. Jellyfin's still a little bit hard to use, but the people who like Jellyfin are really enthusiastic about it. And there's always an open source kind of development / adoption curve that happens where you see, you know, there's often these open source projects start with like a small number of core maintainers who are really stoked about it. It's like one or two people that are cranking away for years. And then there'll be an inflection point where the open source free thing hits a threshold where it supports either more hardware or is faster or is better, or something about it is better than the endemic closed software. And then there's an explosive growth curve typically on that. And we saw that with stuff like Home Assistant and OBS and a bazillion other open source projects, all the way back to like Samba, you know, the thing that does Windows file sharing 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And like that's going to happen. The question is who's going to be poised to take advantage of it.
Wild. Well, and I mean, talking about the GPU front, you know, this is also Arc, right? All that work that has been put into Arc or XE, you know, all that kind of stuff, not just on the desktop side, but also benefits the mobile side. Yeah. So, like, that's why I think a lot of people are bracing for some sort of impact related to GPU stuff, because even if they're like, you know what, we're not going to do desktop GPUs anymore or discrete graphics, that's one thing. But if they take resources away from the whole GPU team, that's going to affect laptops, you know, handhelds, potentially any of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'll be really interesting too, just in terms of pricing and how this all kind of fares out, because, you know, my biggest issue with the Strix Halo, which I think just really dominates in terms of performance on the AMD side, is that price point. And it's so hard to say this needs to be cheaper, because I feel like AMD's response would be, oh, you mean those chips that we can't keep in stock? They need to be cheaper? You know what I mean? Like, they are selling out everywhere all the time. And so it's very hard to incentivize them to bring down that price. And so I think at that point, the only thing that can help with that is going to be competition. And so I do want Intel to succeed. I want them to come up with some sort of APU solution that goes toe to toe with the AMD side. And we're seeing it in terms of price right now, because not a lot of sales are happening on the Intel side. And so MSI claws are being discounted. And so you're starting to see, hey, this is a good deal now, even if the performance is worse, even if the battery life is worse. That's the competition at this point. It's at the consumer level, but I would love to see it even at that release level, where we see something that performs at that point, that competes with AMD, and then also maybe undercuts that price a bit to make them have to rethink what they're doing too. That's what I'd love to see as a consumer.
Interesting.
And if Intel backs away from Arc and starts talking about shutting down the division, like in a world where the AI and GPU, general purpose GPU computing, is driving enormous amounts of growth across the entire industry, like I think that's the end times for Intel, man. They'll hold on to that until the very last thing.
Like, hope so.
Watch everybody just watch Tap's LinkedIn page, okay? His status changes. Sell.
We'll see. We will see. Well, yeah. I mean,
I think it's. Oh.
I mean, I do feel like we are in a renaissance of low power devices, right? Like, there's a lot of attention on handhelds, a lot of renewed attention on mini PCs. You know, that the Switch 2 obviously, you know, plays in there as well. I mean, I think the Switch, the original Switch, is what kind of kicked a lot of this off.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
So
just like the Mac Mini started the NUC stuff on the PC side. Same exact thing.
Okay.
I love Adam just like pause. Like, for audio listeners, like he paused with his mouth open. Like, he was gonna say something, and then he just was like, wait, what?
I mean,
like,
to be fair,
those two things don't compute.
Yeah. To be fair, the Strix Halo stuff is definitely a shot across the Mac Mini ecosystem. So, okay, sure. Whatever. Apples.
I actually, you know, we've been talking a lot about Intel and Intel's current woes, and I think Russ did a great job of encapsulating how I feel about it, which is this is not something to be celebrated, because competition is what has kept this space very healthy and very interesting for the last 7 years or so. And if that goes away, we can't assume that, you know, AMD is going to continue on being this like underdog champion of the people that we've kind of, I think, associated with them. It's if they become the next behemoth, then they're going to act like the behemoth, right? So competition is really useful. And I had a couple different angles I wanted to go from here, which was, one, do we think that if pressed, we could see Intel potentially making alliances that we wouldn't anticipate. Because I don't know if you'll remember the KB Lake G part that they did
Yep.
eons ago. And I'm wondering if they would ever be, if you can envision a future where they partner with NVIDIA to be like, hey, we need a competing part for like kind of an APU style thing, but like our division, maybe we haven't invested enough, maybe because they cut so deep or like they hemorrhage or whatever happens, and they end up going that direction. So that's one thing I wanted to ask you all. And I have another thing, but if I ask multiple questions, it gets weird.
I mean, I'll say this makes me also think. I mean, Intel has definitely been all in on a disaggregated architecture, right? Not just for mobile, but now for desktop as well. So maybe it's, yeah. I mean, I don't know theoretically if that could happen, if they could have if that would feed into it, that, you know, you could pluck some sort of NVIDIA GPU, but oh man, that would be crazy.
Why would NVIDIA do that?
I know that's the question I was asking. Can I ask you all?
Yeah.
But AMD could do that. They've done it.
AMD's whole thing is that they've been the scrappy underdog for the last 30 years, right? And when they've had winners in the past, they managed to blow it in some way or another, or they just couldn't keep up with Intel's process advances, right? So I'm wildly curious to see if they make the transition this time. It's not the answer to Elena's question. I'm sorry. I don't.
You're dodging the answer,
It's a riff.
Senator.
Yeah.
It's a riff.
I don't know why NVIDIA would partner with anybody at this point. NVIDIA is the 800.
Fair.
Like Intel and AMD are fighting over table scraps here, and NVIDIA is, Jensen sitting up on his lighted throne on top of the hill, looking down at them, chucking birdseed down to scrabble over.
Sure. I mean, from
So
a
I
business
think that-
perspective, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that the only thing I can think of where NVIDIA might be interested in is, especially in the handheld space with those smaller screens, things like upscaling is a big deal, right? And if that's just another avenue to potentially expand on DLSS and have some sort of partnership there, and I don't know, like I've always considered like right now to be part of like the upscaling wars is the way I talk about it. All the FSRs and XeSS and DLSS, I don't want to do all that stuff. I want to, I want to rip Van Winkle and wake up 10 years from now and be like, you know what, there's just one button I have to push and it's going to make my games look better, right? And that kind of, partnering with Intel for NVIDIA's side may give them the ability to kind of squash XeSS and potentially, or enfold it into DLSS in terms of AI upscaling. And so that's the only incentive I can think of is something that is kind of a what's in it for me for them.
That's a good point, because then it kind of similar to what I kind of see as the reason why they would do the switch is that it gets their name out there. It makes people more familiar with their technology and want to reach for that brand, so to speak, when they're picking something.
Yeah.
What was your second question, Leah?
Oh, my second question was more generally, more away from the whole, like, is, what's Intel versus AMD, the situation like, do we think we're now reaching a space, because the mini PCs are becoming more popular with consumers, because the handheld space has proliferated the way it has, do we think we're finally reaching a place where low power, chips can provide the kind of experience that that people are happy with, without really necessarily making them always say, oh, I wish it had this, or I wish it had that? Because especially if we're talking about retro gaming, I mean, we've got so much power now relative to what those systems and consoles did. I'm just kind of wondering, like, where you see this going. Like, are the improvements going to be more like battery life, form factor, things like that?
I'm going to leave that for Russ. What do you
Yeah.
think?
So
Where do you want the
lot.
hardware to go?
I got a lot of thoughts there, but I think that yes, low power performance is definitely the way to go when it comes to handhelds in particular, and I think it would benefit laptops as well. The big issue at that point is going to be, the majority, like I was talking about with Strix Halo, does very well at like a 7 or 8 watt performance profile. But I'm not smart enough to know if that's because it has an excess amount of power that allows it to draw down so well, or if you could do that on a cheaper, not as performant chipset. Like, are we going to see low power performance on something that just actually can't get to the high power stuff as well, or does it need to be a balance? And so I'm not smart enough to understand that side of things, but I think that what we've seen, at least in my space and what I've seen with handhelds, is that we often will look at how low power performance fares and whatnot, but the majority of the interest usually ends up being, okay, but what about at the high end? What can we see at the max? What can I expect when playing a AAA game when buying this handheld? And so I think a lot of people are not as interested in that low power performance because they associate it with low powered games, which can run on other things. And so my issue with that is that, yeah, I'm not really sure if the interest is there, other than like for me, when I kind of see the value in getting 8 hours of battery life when playing Hades, I'm not sure if everyone else is seeing that too.
Well, but what about on the retro side? Because like when you're emulating stuff, like I feel like emulation has gotten so good. Like sure, it depends on the current stuff, but a lot of these chipsets can go all the way up to like a PS3 360 generation and be just fine. Like so.
Yeah, in terms of emulation, I mean, you're talking about everything up through like say Gen 6 era. So PS2, GameCube, and whatnot. You can usually generally play those in 8 to 10 watt TDP performance with a lot of these chipsets. But once you get beyond that, PS3, Xbox 360, a lot of that emulation really comes down to compatibility and optimization with the chip, as opposed to what the chip can do. What can the emulator do with that chip? And because we're getting so many chips all the time, these teams that are working on this stuff are all, mostly project based. They're very small. The optimization is always the thing that needs to keep up, and that's been the rub there. So it's not necessarily a chip maker's fault, but rather just the fact that it's just a constantly evolving world, and I don't envy those emulator developers.
Well, and then there's the other frontier at the even older, like the CRT era emulation, where people are starting to emulate CRT phosphor glow and stuff like that on crazy high end monitors, and that, like, it's unclear to me exactly where. I mean, obviously you need high refresh rate OLED displays for that to really shine. I want to see that stuff come to like a 480p, a 480p. I want to see a 480p handheld with a 500 hertz OLED display in it that I can run those phosphor shaders on. Because when that stuff hits, it is so cool.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And we're only seeing really 120 hertz right now. Even the low end space, like the Android and Linux based ones, we've seen 960p, so a 2x upscale of 120 hertz displays in 4:3 aspect ratio. And so that's been really neat. It gives you a little bit of that CRT effect, but I agree. Yeah, you need 240 hertz in OLED to really start to see that difference. And the moment they come out with a handheld like that, it's going to take my channel over, I think.
Yeah. Well, I saw this video. I actually saved it. This is from August 7th. So last week, it looks like, from Isaac OS. I actually haven't seen this gentleman's channel. The title of the video is "They Finally Recreated a CRT in a Handheld." I haven't watched the video yet, so I don't know what's about.
Yeah.
But it's featuring the RG477M. Do you know about this?
Yep.
What's
That's the
going on
screen
here?
I was talking about. Yeah, so that's 960p 4:3 aspect ratio, 4.7 inch, 120 hertz. So I did a review of that device as well.
Oh,
and
you
yeah,
did?
exactly that. Yeah, I did a video talking about black frame insertion and using subframe shaders, and so those together, can give you a bit of that effect, but it's not to the point of I wouldn't necessarily call it CRT, but more CRT-like. And once we get to 240, it'll be even better. But that is an IPS 120 hertz, so it gets you kind of halfway there.
Is 240 the gate because it's 4? You get 4 frames for every frame on the 60 hertz signal. Is that it?
Yeah, and so there's a couple aspects to it, but they've seen that in order to really actually get that flow, you need 3 or 4 flickers basically within one frame to really get that look of a CRT. So.
Wow.
We had Mike Micah, who's I think the chief content officer for Digital Eclipse they do a lot of remasters of old games. They did that at Great Atari 50th thing.
Really good stuff.
A few years ago with that took the games that you kind of don't really want to play anymore and then made interesting documentary videos around them. Anyway, we had him on the Tech Pod a few years ago, and he was talking about literally people using FPGAs that were on the same scale as the D10 Nano that's used for the Mister to do phosphor emulation on the video signal from the FPGA that's emulating the hardware, right? And like at that time that was kind of a theoretical thing, and now the GPUs have progressed enough that we can do it on more. It's a fascinating place. It's one of the things that always shocks me when you play like an old Sonic game, especially. They're kind of notorious for this, is that a lot of like the waterfall effects and the transparency is based on the expectation that the phosphors on the CRT are going to take a frame to fade. So you get transparency when you play them on a CRT. When you play them on a regular monitor, it just looks kind of crappy.
Yeah.
So
well, we're talking about things that we would love to see.
Yeah.
Why don't we transition over to the Steam Deck 2 and what we would love to see there? Would you love to see a 240 hertz OLED screen in the Steam Deck 2 just so you could have that really good CRT effect?
I would love to see that. I don't know how feasible it is. One of the greatest things about the Steam Deck in particular is that you can just change the refresh rate on the fly. You got a slider, which you often will not find in other handhelds or other OSs. So I feel like Valve could pull it off, but I don't know sourcing and materials and whatnot to make a 240 hertz small screen like that. It's going to cost, I don't know how much to fab that.
Well, I'm gonna step back from my transition a little bit. Steam Deck 2 not officially announced, not that we know of. Anything officially has just been like, oh hey, we're waiting for. I think the last official kind of high level talk was like, oh yeah, we're waiting for the next leap in technology for us to take the plunge.
Which means console generation, right?
I don't know what does that mean.
That to me says console generation.
Is that yeah?
That's my assumption is when they say the next giant leap in technology,
I thought it was more like, hey, we have the performance in the Steam Deck right now. We're gonna wait for whatever processor AMD has that quadruples that performance. Like we don't want to get in the rat race of like, oh yeah, it's 20% faster. Whoop-de-doo. We're gonna wait till it's like much faster.
10x.
Yeah, I don't know. What's your take on it, Russ? What do you think?
It's exactly that. I think that it is not necessarily tied to console, but to give a generational feeling when going from the Steam Deck 1 to 2. Because right now it would just be, oh, great, you've done some slight improvements, kind of similar to what we saw with the OLED Steam Deck. They changed the nanometer process on that. They made the screen a little bit bigger. Like that was just kind of a tiny little upgrade. I think that they're waiting for something much bigger, and I'm here for it. I think that the Strix Halo could pull that off. But I don't think that pricing is there yet. So I think that's probably potentially for that. You don't agree?
The Steam Deck Pro, man. They're going to put a $3,000 Steam Deck out there, and only for professionals. Okay.
Yeah. Also, I don't know. I don't have any inside information. I've seen our buddy Kerry over at the Fox, doing all that testing with Strix Halo and how he's excited for that. I don't think that's a gaming part. I think it's cost wise also. Die size, I mean, and also what it's being used for. Like, I really do think AMD was trying to get that into high end AI workflows and small packages kind of things.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, there is a knockoff effect that it does also do really well for gaming, but I don't know. Well, and then there was that new GPD that does have the Strix Halo. So maybe I'm wrong. I'm curious to see how it is. Either way, yes, the cost is something that's going to be prohibitive.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. Well, why do you think it's tied to the console generation?
I mean, so there's no upside for Valve in pushing a new handheld at this point, right? They've essentially established a min spec for PC games with the Steam Deck that like an enormous number of developers are targeting. It's unusual that you see a new game come out on Steam now that doesn't have a Steam Deck verification badge unless it either has some the DRM or the anti-cheat requires secure boot, Battlefield, or it's a big huge title and they don't care about the handheld people, right? Because if you're making GTA 6, you don't care if you lose 6 million Steam Deck customers, right? I think the benefits of having established a min spec are so high for Valve because right now they have a device that you say, hey, you can pay $300, you can get in to all the wonders that the Steam ecosystem has to offer. You can play everything from Helldivers to your waifu games, and that's hugely beneficial to Valve's business, which isn't selling Steam Decks, it's selling games.
Well, and so I would say, and actually this is why Russ coming on the show even happened, because we were chatting offline about this. Does Valve even care to have another Steam Deck? Like, if the goal is to not sell hardware and the goal is to sell more games and get people in the Steam ecosystem, like, I mean, that's why they're working on SteamOS to get that in more handheld stuff. If one of these other handheld manufacturers can kind of take over that reins of a low cost, then why would Valve even care?
I think it seems like Valve doesn't loss lead the Steam Deck, right? Even though they know how many games people buy pretty clearly when they buy a Steam Deck. I think it's safe to say that they're going to make money or break even on every unit of hardware that they sell. And I do think that the financial pressures on them are different than on Lenovo or Asus or MSI or anybody else in that space, because Asus wants to hit their margin and Valve just wants to break even so they have more people out there that can buy games on Steam, right? So they're always going to be in an advantageous position in terms of price and their offer that they can sell into. I mean, undoubtedly, there's people at Valve right now working on next gen hardware, right? I have no doubt, because you don't spin up those divisions and then spin them back down and then spin them up again and spin them back down. Well, you keep those people employed.
But that doesn't mean they have to come up with anything, right?
Well, also there's a long dev cycle on hardware, right? It takes a long time. So
that and I think that Will's earlier point about them basically creating a min spec is something that I can't anticipate them dropping as an interest, right? Because if you want, my take on this is that they are going to be more likely to push a new version based on how well the old one is performing, right? So I think it's going to be more dictated by, are the games that people are playing going to be unplayable or less enjoyable to play on a Steam Deck, this first version? That's going to precipitate, in my opinion, the release of a new one, right? So they're basically just going to keep lifting the tide on that as the boats are rising. I'm mixing my metaphors here, but I think you all know what I mean. And I think that Will's right, that they're not going to be as pressured into releasing a new console just for the sake of seeming fresh and new and, seeming like they have to create or stay, relevant as mindshare, because again, they are more of a software company. So I think it's more like the software is going to dictate what they do with the hardware from where I'm sitting.
When they rolled out the OLED, they had the opportunity to do an incremental upgrade and they chose not to, right? They fixed a handful of bugs. They fixed the most pressing thing, which was that downloading too much stuff made the whole thing slow down. And because they had bad cooling on the network card, right, on the Wi-Fi card. And like
it did do a die shrink on the
they
package.
did a die shrink,
which saved a little bit of battery.
But they could have rolled out a new APU and they chose not to, right? They choose to do a mid-cycle refresh. That's basically looks to me like Switch Pro. Maybe they'll do a Steam Deck Lite at some point. That's a smaller version for the children-sized hands. But
I mean, yeah. Well, so do we think? Do you think it's safe to say that if their goal, so they've got multiple goals. It's not just about selling games on Steam, but it is also about making sure that minimum play experience is good. Do you think like maybe that's where they'll always play, is like, hey, we're always going to make sure the ground floor is a specific target, because the other manufacturers can't hit that.
Well, that's the benefit they have as the owner of the platform and the one who can take the smallest margin on the hardware and still win, right? Like if they need to make less money than everyone else, they can push the hardware a little bit more than Asus or Lenovo or MSI or anybody else is going to be able to, because they can afford to have thin margins.
So Russ, when does that happen? A lot of people are like, I'm waiting for a Steam Deck. It's Steam Deck 2. It's coming later this year. Oh no, it's coming next year. When do you think it's coming, Russ? Tell us right now.
So last year, I think everyone was probably saying 2026, but I think that the partnerships with like Lenovo, for example, and also the public Steam OS option, to be able to install that on other things, I think that's kind of pushed things back a little bit, just from a kind of wait and see perspective of okay, let's see how it fares when we put our stuff on other hardware. Let's see how it works when we make SteamOS publicly available to be able to put on other handhelds, and then see how that all kind of susses out. And I feel like it gives them more time to feel out whether or not they do want to release hardware. I see that as a bad thing. I want another Steam Deck because I want Valve to make the hardware, because I like what they make, and the innovations that they did just on day one with the Steam Deck as it released was just a fully formed project, as opposed to a lot of the other handhelds we saw where they did a good first shot, and then the second one was a little bit better. I would say that there's a huge leap from the MSI Claw, for example, from the 1 to the 2. And I personally, just the selfish guy I am, I want something from Valve just because I think it'll be really neat, and I like what they do with hardware. And so when I saw the partnership with Lenovo and I saw that they were releasing SteamOS, it's cool. It's cool for the community, but it also makes me worried that it might be so cool that they don't make a Steam Deck too, because they don't have an incentive for it, because they can just pay nothing and not release any hardware.
Or what if they take the hardware and try to disrupt somewhere else, right? The Steam Deck was a disruptor, and then so they're like, hey, we want to come in and disrupt, but we're not here necessarily for the long game. We're here to disrupt and let other people follow that path. Maybe the Steam Deck 2 isn't actually a Steam Deck. What if it's the headless box,
the Steam dock,
the Steam
Link 2,
TV,
Steam Linker?
A mini PC.
Yeah, a mini PC under the TV, right? Like, I think.
Would you call it a Steam machine?
No, you wouldn't call it
I've got one of those.
That's got the stink on it. You don't want that.
True. Well, so like for me, like I think that's the other part of it, is that if they want to disrupt somewhere, that is the next place to really disrupt, is to say, hey, you know what? Now we're going to have a true PC console experience that it's easy to set up, plug into a TV, grab a controller, boom, there you go. Because I mean, there are a lot of options, and a lot of people try to do different things, but man, I feel like that's where Valve needs to put their resources. What do you think, Russ?
Yeah, no, I think that's always kind of been an idea too, is like that console space, like come after that too. But why not make it a dockable thing? Like you could go after the whole Switch thing too. I mean, it's not like a trademark, the ability to have a handheld that is also dockable. You could kind of have both in one. But yeah, I see the headless thing as being a viable option and a potential there, but I don't know. I'm a handheld guy. I want to see my handheld too.
I just don't know what has the hardware to do 4K, to do the game. Like, part of the secret sauce of the Steam Deck being good with AAA games is that it's a 1280 by 800 display, and they're doing a little bit of upscaling, and like a lot of games you get a smooth 40 on when you turn everything all the way down, and if you scale that up
40
and get all muddy scaled up 800p graphics on your 4K display, it's going to be a bad experience. But
what if they just match the Switch? Because I think right now the Switch has done the bare minimum to say, hey, you can play this on your 4K TV, and it's the bare minimum.
But when I play,
like, all they need to do is match the Switch.
The Switch 2 games that I'm playing at 4K on my TV are Switch 1 games that are up-resed, or like Donkey Kong Bonanza is lovely, but it is a relatively lo-fi game. There's a reason God of War Ragnarok isn't on the Switch too, not just that it's a PlayStation exclusive game, but like that hardware is not going to run that game at a reasonable level. And that's a game from a console generation that's now 5 years old almost, right? We're coming up on the end of this. We're in the back downhill side of this generation now. And we're going to see new hardware that has a bunch of AI features and stuff like that coming. So I just don't think they're going to do anything until we're at a point where they're like the hardware that they ship is going to run PS6 and God only knows what they're going to call the next Xbox, the Xbox Series Y consoles. Maybe there is no next Xbox the way Microsoft's going, honestly.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
So what if the headless box is just an eGPU dock? You know what I mean?
Well,
so you have your handheld, and then
everybody loves.
We'll talk about eGPUs in the next segment. That's the next segment,
It's a
Russ.
great
Come on.
segue. Great
I'm
segue.
not there yet.
Russ is ready to move it along.
I know. Yeah, Russ is like, come on. I'm hungry. No, I'm going to pump the brakes. Yes, I see that, but I don't know. Like, I feel like that goes against the whole console thing, right?
Sure.
Like to be able to just say, hey, here's your thing. You buy it. You put it under your TV, and you play games. It sleeps well. It downloads your games. It does all the stuff a traditional console can do, but it's your PC gaming library. Like, I feel like making it more complicated by either docking it or having an eGPU, it's not a traditional console thing.
It needs to be simple. That's the secret.
I mean, are you talking about just like a quote unquote desktop console experience? Because what Russ was talking about is, handheld, being able to live in two worlds. And to the whole point of this, I think this is more of a software approach, not a hardware approach. Like I think if they were to release something like a whatever a better name is that is not doesn't have the tainted association of Steam Machine, but if they were to release a second wave of Steam Machine, I actually think that they would be like best served by having, again, like the Steam Deck, that they have a minimum spec version, right? Where they're like, here's how it could be. We've made an experience that we want everyone who is going to do anything like this should have. This is going to be your gold standard. But I think a lot of that is going to be based on how well they handle the software side of things, which is a place where I feel like the first generation or the only generation of Steam machines had trouble with, right? Like they couldn't, it just never came up to a level that people wanted to adopt it because the software wasn't as good as an experience as just getting a traditional console at that time. And I think they've proven with the Steam Deck that they can provide that experience to some degree, at least in the handheld space. So I wouldn't be surprised if, we did see some kind of quote unquote desktop console come out that sort of was like the Steam Deck, but for traditional console experience. The thing is that stripping it up is like, I think what Will is saying here is that whole 4K thing, because when you have a traditional console, game developers can make it so that it renders out in 4K, but they're doing all kinds of tricks in the background.
A little upscaling.
With the upscaling and because they're so much closer to the hardware that they can, manipulate that. It's harder, as we talked about on the show before, to do that with PC because everyone's configurations are so different. They can't quite, get the optimizations the same. So I think 4K would be that tripping, that point that would trip things up.
I guess I just feel like as long as they can target 1080p like the Switch 2, which most Switch 2 games are targeting 1080p and upraising to 4K.
Which is a perfectly cromulent solution.
Yeah, which is what I think. Yeah. Like, I don't think they need to target 4K. I think as long as whatever would be in this theoretical box or even the Steam Deck 2, they would target 1080p. And then it'll upscale to 4K.
1080p is a resolution you can embiggen up to 4K, no problem.
Yeah. Everybody does it. Yeah. Which is why I think they targeted 800p for the Steam Deck 1, but that doesn't necessarily, that does not upscale to 4K very well. I mean, in terms of the actual pixel count, but also the power within the Steam Deck.
Yeah. And also the 800p on the Steam Deck, especially for AAA stuff, you have to turn it down to potato settings to get playable frame rates on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and here's the other thing I want to ask you, Russ, because we did a video a couple weeks ago comparing, hey, which handheld would you like to have at $500? The Z2 Go version of the Lenovo Legion Go S on sale, because we've seen it time and time again hit $500 with actually more specs than.
Is that the Windows one or the Steam one?
Either.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we the Windows one is usually the one that hits 500. But
weird.
Yeah. And it has like 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte SSD, all that stuff. Or the $550 Steam Deck OLED, which is the entry level Steam Deck OLED. And I was expecting a lot of people to be like, nope, Steam Deck OLED, hands down. I mean, it's just been our default recommendation from day one. But I actually was like, you know what? I think I would probably go for the Legion Go S. At that price point. Like, I feel like that's the first time where I'm like, ooh, boy, okay. Like, these are comparable things, but the Legion Go S does have an advantage in some ways. The Steam Deck still has an advantage in some ways as well. But I want to hear what would you take between those two?
Yeah, I'm really torn. I'm not a huge fan of the Z2 Go. It's a lot better on SteamOS than it is on Windows, I think, just in terms of performance, especially on the low power side. But yeah, I love that screen. I think the screen I like it better, even though it's not OLED, right? 1200p resolution, 8 inches for me is like the sweet spot for handheld PCs. I also think it's a little bit more comfortable too. I'm not a trackpad guy, so I'm not going to miss out on using those trackpads for gaming. So bones wise, I prefer the Legion Go S just in terms of the feel and the screen and everything else. Chip is a little bit harder to say. Yeah, I'd probably go with the Legion Go. If I can get it in white, then I'll get that one.
Well, because that's the thing.
Well, and that's, but I mean, that is the deal that we're mostly seeing is the Windows version in white at $500, and then you just put SteamOS on it because it's no bizarre.
Same hardware.
Yeah, literally the same hardware. Yeah, so you actually get more for your money that way. Well, but that's you. What about recommending other people?
Oh, I'd recommend the Steam Deck every time. I think that barrier to entry of flashing SteamOS onto it, and then the potential hiccups of just trying to deal with that chipset and the power profiles and whatnot. And the Steam Deck just work. You don't actually have to go into the settings to do anything. It'll just work. It'll throttle down when needed and whatnot. The Z2 Go still needs a little TLC. And so if we're talking about somebody just jumping in like, hey, handheld PC, it's always going to be the Steam Deck in that regard. But for me at home, yeah, I would probably go with that Legion Go West. I reviewed the Z1 Extreme version of it, and I've been thinking about it ever since. I had to send it back to them, and I even sent them email. I was like, hey, do you have any others that don't need to be sent back?
that one is actually my daily driver right now, the Z1 Extreme version. Yeah.
In that video, I literally said, I was like, if someone came into my studio right now and stole all my handheld PCs, I'd only buy one.
That would be rude.
It would be that one. Yeah, it would be rude.
Yeah. Don't do that, because you would have to. We got your back.
Upset.
Yeah, I'll fly out and hurt somebody.
Some people up.
But that's the one you would wish they would leave behind.
That's the one. No, that's the one I would buy in order to replace all the ones that were stolen.
Wow. Okay, yeah. That's a pretty good endorsement. Yeah, and I do feel the same way.
I really miss the trackpads. Oddly, I don't use the trackpads on the Steam Deck in a way that I ever consciously am aware of. But when they aren't there, I absolutely miss them, which I was shocked by when I was using the Legion Go. Just honestly, it's mostly in the desktop stuff, setting up the emulation and stuff for the Steam Deck. I didn't want to have to plug in a mouse and keyboard, and I was able to do most of it with the pads.
So, and real quick to go back to it, you're saying, like, because I'm wondering, of this whole discussion of Steam Deck 2, where is that line where us as reviewers of this hardware can then default to something else rather than Steam Deck? Because it's just been blanket for years, just buy a Steam Deck. Where is that line? It sounds like it's the chip.
It's the chip, I would say. And I haven't had my hands on the Z2 Extreme yet, and I don't know how it's going to pair in a handheld state. Obviously, the AI HX370 is a very similar chipset in that regard. So I've used that on other handhelds and mini PCs, but that might be it, in terms of someone looking for performance. Too. Right. And that's another thing, is that's going to be a big jump in price. And so I don't know. I'm not seeing it yet. And that's why, I'm pretty confident in saying that I can buy that Legion Go S Z1 Extreme right now and be happy for some time, even though we've got some right on the horizon coming out later this year. I'm not sure. I'm not super optimistic.
Well, and this is the beautiful thing about the PC space too, right? Is Valve's established a min spec with the Steam Deck. If you buy hardware that's better than that, or if you want a higher resolution screen, or if you want a different control layout, you can spend more money and get that. But developers have a target that they know they can hit, and it's going to hit 6 million guaranteed units that are out in the world or more. And plus, it'll run on pretty much every computer that has integrated graphics from the last 2 or 3 years. That's a beautiful thing, both for people playing games and for people making games, because it takes a lot of the guesswork out of, you guys are both too young to remember the bad old days when you'd go to the store and you'd be like, okay, so this Dennis Hopper in I have no mouth and I must scream or something, or Hell, a cyberpunk thriller. This says I need to have an MPC2 level computer. What does that actually mean? And it's it means I have 4 megabytes of RAM and a 2x CD-ROM drive. But all
right, Grandpa.
It was really hard. It was hard for people to know what games their computer could run. And it doesn't matter for us, the nerds, but for people who want to give their loved ones games as a gift, it was really challenging. And this means you just buy a game on Steam and it's going to work if you have a reasonably modern computer.
Yeah, I dig it. I dig it. Well, you know what else I dig? Is eGPUs. I love electronic GPUs. Nope, that's not what it stands for.
That's not what it stands for.
External GPUs. Russ, you're in this boat with me of being just a sicko, a freak when it comes to eGPUs, right?
Yeah, I don't want to have 2 computers. I want to have one computer that does all the software updates on that one, and it's in handheld state or whatever, and then I also plug it in when I'm ready to play on the desktop. That's my goal for me. It's this idea of just having one machine. All my save games, everything else is all on one.
Elena, what do you think about eGPUs? Do you like the promise?
I like the concept.
But
I do.
Yeah, but you're not willing to deal with the headache.
I haven't really just dove into it, as you know.
Okay.
You loaned me that eGPU unit. I haven't really spent a lot of time with it. It's very. I actually play off these days. I play off a mini PC technically.
Ooh, nice. Will, you've lived that eGPU life.
Yeah, I think it sucks.
Wow.
I mean, okay.
Wow.
Here's the thing. I think conceptually it's really good, right? Like the idea that I can take my laptop and use the same computer for desktop and laptop work, and I can just, when I get to my desk at home, I can sit down, I can plug in and get all the power of a giant 600-watt desktop GPU. That sounds great in theory. In practice, it always has problems. Like it's always either you have to completely shut down the computer to unplug the GPU or plug in the GPU, or it has weird crashes because there's bottlenecks and there's weird driver stuff, or you get a new GPU and it's not supported by the external GPU driver, so then you have to wait for that to be supported and go dig out the GOAT, a 1080 Ti a little bit, because you know that
literally hardware Hall of Fame winner.
Hall of Fame winner, the GOAT. Like there's always the cords are always too short and like really, really firm and like
that's by design,
not bendy. Yeah. It's too easy to unplug them by accident, thus causing everything to blue screen. Oops. They're fiddly in a way that annoys me, and I would rather call me old fashioned, but I think the GPU should be inside the computer where it belongs. Wow. I'm all about the iGPU.
Wow. Okay. Well, I would love to be able to put this Yeston Sakura GPU right next to me in an eGPU, so I just get that maximum smell right to my face. And maybe I can do that with a Thunderbolt 5 based eGPU. Now, I feel like we're at the next inflection point for eGPUs because it's been stagnant for a while, right? Oculink kind of shook things up a little bit, but like support for Oculink on the host device still pretty minimal. Russ, what were your thoughts of Oculink overall?
I liked Oculink. I think that all the stuff that Will was describing, I imagined him in black and white, like when you're watching an infomercial and they're talking about all the bad things.
He's pulling his hair out.
Comes out in color, right? And
Nice.
Oculink solved a couple of those things in terms of bandwidth and whatnot, because it was basically PCIe, but it didn't have hot swapping, which Thunderbolt 5 will have. So there are some other aspects to it. I thought it was okay, but just such a small base to like pull from in terms of computers that supported it and docks that would work as well. And so yeah, it was exciting for a while, but it never really took off the way I was hoping it would.
Well, I feel like I walked into Computex earlier this year very surprised to see so many people being like, hey, Thunderbolt 5, check out our enclosure. Literally like like Asus had one, like an external enclosure, not just their 5090 laptop mobile eGPU kind of solution. Gigabyte had one, and also, I mean, a couple other people had one, of course, but also, if you don't mind putting this on the other side, Razer just sent me theirs. So I've got in front of me, for audio listeners,
that's a big old box.
In box. I haven't opened it up
box.
yet, so this is I actually don't know which model. It might be the RGB one or not. But this is their Thunderbolt 5 enclosure, which we've done some coverage of the announcement over at on PCWorld.com. I know one Mike Kreider has covered its existence, but this is my first time getting my hands on eGPU. Sorry, the name is the Razer Core X V2. So this is Thunderbolt 5. Thunderbolt 5, is supposed to eliminate some of those headaches and woes from this eGPU stuff. So Russ, are you excited for this next wave of eGPU interest? Do you think Thunderbolt 5 is finally going to be our moment in the spotlight?
I feel like the cart is before the horse, because how many Thunderbolt 5 handhelds and computers do we have right now, right, that are at an affordable price? That there's nothing. I mean, even Asus is coming out with their own, right, and it's Thunderbolt 5, but their next handheld, the ROG Ally X Xbox One, it's Thunderbolt 4, like it's a USB 4 connection. So they're not even supporting it with their own next gen handheld, which just, I don't know, it's the cart before the horse for me.
I mean, but Thunderbolt 5 is what? PCIe 4 speeds? It's always one back? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
So we're barely saturating a by 8 PCIe 4 bus with a 5090 right now. So, we're close, man. That box opening is really loud, Adam.
That was really hard to get out of the box.
That's a big ol'. This looks. I could fit a whole computer in a case
Boom.
this size.
Yeah, that is big. I will say also, yeah, so Razer sent this over. This is on loan from Razer. And I was like, hey, thanks for sending that over. Unfortunately, I actually don't have any devices that have Thunderbolt 5. So they did send over the last generation of their Blade, which has a Thunderbolt 5 in it. So it's the first laptop generation of theirs that had Thunderbolt 5. They do have a new laptop generation. So, yeah, I'm curious to test it on that. But I am curious to test, supposedly, this will actually enhance even Thunderbolt 4 or USB 4 connections as well. Right. So theoretically, even if you don't have a Thunderbolt 5 based system, you could still buy this, use it on Thunderbolt 4 for now, but then you're future proof when you do have Thunderbolt 5 on whatever
we love
hardware that is.
Future proof here at PCWorld too.
So I do think there is a reason for it to exist, and I'm glad they're pushing it. How do you open it?
I don't know how to open it.
It's a slide.
I think you have to just lift it straight up.
Is it lift?
I think it's straight
you
up.
just lift it. There you go. Yeah. So boom, it's
okay.
bare. Yeah. So
that's a big old fan.
That's
so
big.
No power supply. They did a power supply in the previous generation.
Yeah. So no power supply. So the reason they gave me was that too many people wanted to have a different power supply than what was included. So essentially saying because when it was first released, the Razer Core X, God, what was the power supply in there? Was it 500 watts?
I think 500.
Yeah, and then they saw a lot of people were upgrading to higher wattage, obviously for 4090s, 5090s, all that kind of stuff. So they were like, you know what? Instead of having to worry about that, we're just not going to include one because most people already have a spec that they want to hit anyway. So
I mean, we all have a bunch of old power supplies that don't run with modern GPUs laying around. Just jam one in here and call it a day, right?
Yeah, I see both sides. I think it's a positive and a negative. So I can see why they did it. I don't think there's actually one answer that would satisfy everybody. So I would say the bigger thing for me is that this has no hub at all. So it's just hey, you know what? We're just going to focus on the data throughput for the GPU, which is good. I appreciate that. But there are other eGPU docks that had a separate connection with a hub. So you could have had both. Maybe it was a cost thing. I don't know. But for me, that's a little bit more of a bummer. Is that when you're having to eat up one of your ports, then you got to rely more on hubs. And so it's nice to have the hub built in, but maybe once again, a lot of people, I don't know about you guys, but I have other hubs as well. So maybe they're just meh.
Is that there's an extra, is this where you plug into the
that is the connection. Yeah.
That's the only connection?
That's the only connection.
On the front or anything?
Nope.
Oh man.
Well, because the last one did have hub into it, but it shared the same bandwidth. So this, you're just saying, hey, the bandwidth of the GPU is the only thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I want to plug this into my. I guess the thing that's happened in the last few years is that we have monitors that now will do that work for you. But then you're plugging two things in, and I just want to plug this into my desk and have my laptop turn on and use the keyboard and mouse and monitors that are on my desk and not have to think about it. And I don't know.
Well, yeah. Hi. So Russ, have you gotten any eGPU Thunderbolt 5 eGPU stuff in yet?
No, not yet. And I'm curious about this whole hub thing, is whether or not the GPU itself will even take up that entire bandwidth available on Thunderbolt 5 in the first place. And so there is actually some headroom there for peripherals. I agree with Will. I want my keyboard and mouse already hooked up, when I plug it in.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there are other, like I said, different companies have different solutions. This is just the first one that I have gotten my hands on. There's according to Razer, there's no embargo, so I'm gonna try to do some testing, get some information out there. It's
funny because I bought one of the early Razer eGPU docks, the Thunderbolt 2 one, I think, maybe one. It was a 1060. It actually went with that 1060 Razer laptop, right? And I bought it thinking, oh, this is going to be small enough. I can chuck it in a backpack, carry it onto a plane. I have a full desktop GPU with me. And then it turns out the 1060 was fast enough, and the eGPU holder, which was half the size of this, maybe less, still was too big to carry on the plane. So anyway, I don't know. I don't Yeah. These always feel like products without a real firm design goal to me.
Well, I mean, it's hard, right? Because like there's actually like the Asus version, which was not, I believe they said at the time at Computex that it was just a proof of concept. Like they weren't actually going to ship with that. They were getting feedback and all that kind of stuff, if I remember correctly. But that one was an open design, so the power supply and all the the PCB for the controller and stuff was inside of the dock, and then you actually put the GPU on the outside. So you get to see the pretty GPU. This one is like an actual enclosure where you put everything in and then you slide the thing on. And I mean, there are holes for ventilation, but you're not really looking at the GPU.
Would your cat put its paw in the fan if the lights were on it?
He doesn't really do much. He just sleeps.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I'd
That'd
have to
be
worry
better
about
for
that.
your scented GPUs too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
that's true.
Yeah. So which would you rather have, Russ? An open?
I like the open air concept.
Really?
Yeah. I just think it looks neat. Like I'm kind of came into the PC gaming world a little bit late in the game, and so I don't know.
Well, it's not
still
PC
think
gaming
that,
world. It's just PC world.
Yeah.
right? PC world
Closed.
is. No, I came into it late. Like I got my first real gaming PC in 2020, like during the pandemic, right? So I came into this kind of later. And so I'm not burnt out by things like RGB. I think it's neat still, and so I like that open concept because I can see all those, furling, like the whirling fans and everything else. So,
And the cool
I like
design. Yeah. Elena, which style do you like better? Do you like it enclosed or do you like the open dock one?
I actually prefer enclosed because I hate dusting. Like I really hate dusting.
Well, watch out, you're missing the slot here. Have you ever built a computer before?
This is a terrible angle.
Wow, just so casually throwing that shade.
It's the
Have you ever built a
plastic
PC
on
before?
the ports.
For audio listeners.
So I love giving Will a hard time.
Is struggling a little bit.
Yeah, love giving Will a
I'm
hard
doing it
time.
left-handed
Graphics card.
across. Try not to whack the mic.
I will say that this enclosure has no dust filters. So it does have ventilation, but no dust filters. So it probably wouldn't do too well in a dusty environment either. Elena?
I'm with Elena on hiding my shame. I don't want to see the dust. I want it all hidden.
I mean, it's not that no dust would accumulate, but it doesn't accumulate as quickly.
True, yeah. Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah.
Will which version? I don't think I've asked. Which version do you like better?
The scented
Open?
or un?
No. Open or enclosed?
I'm with Elena. I want it enclosed, so I don't
want it
have
closed.
to. Like I love RGB. You know me. I'm Captain RGB.
Mr. RGB over here. Yeah.
But I'm gonna say hard pass on open fans on my desktop because somebody will walk in. I have children. She'll walk in and be like, "Hey, is that fan spinning? Ow!"
Oh no, that's what I do.
Yeah, I know you do that too. I have 2 children, it turns out. But yeah, no, I don't want to see the dust in my computer, please.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe Alex put up a poll. Actually, I don't know. I feel like the other thing people I always see, and I did see it earlier too. People are like, "Wait, why would you want an eGPU? It's so expensive."
Yeah.
Like it makes no sense. You
And
could
a
just
pain in the butt.
You could just build your own computer for this price. Russ, do you mind explaining to people why somebody would maybe want an eGPU?
Yeah, it comes down to, I think, 2 parts to it. The first is that you can kind of create a modular computer setup. So, for example, like if you got a mini PC, you're not ready to go full on desktop, but you do want an upgrade, then an eGPU will give you that upgrade on the gaming side without having to buy a whole new computer. And then the portability, I think, is the other argument that I personally like really attest to, is the idea of being able to play something portably, especially, a laptop or a handheld, and then also have that desktop experience when I want it. To this day, my favorite gaming setup has always been that first ROG Ally, the white one, that had that proprietary XG Mobile plug on it, because I had that XG Mobile GPU, and that was such a good fit. I used that as my main Windows PC for a year. It was an ROG Ally, which is just kind of crazy, but it was my desktop computer and my handheld, and I loved it.
Did the external GPU on that have USB ports so you could plug your monitor and keyboard and mouse into it and Ethernet?
It did.
It did.
It depended. They released 3 different versions. They kind of came in little different configurations, but
Right.
I think that latest one,
That's really nice.
had everything. Even
And it was so
Ethernet.
small.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so small. I just bought like this dual laptop vertical holder, so I could slot my ROG Ally in and then slot that XG Mobile in, and that was it. It was a small footprint, and we're kind of tight on space here in Hawaii, and so that was just another great thing for me. It wasn't taking a bunch of power. It wasn't blowing hot air on my feet like my other PC had been doing. And it was just like a really nice experience. It was expensive, but man, I used the heck out of it.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing. People are like, oh, for the same price, you could just build desktop. Well, I mean, but I think what you're missing is that a lot of people are like the price of it is worth it to say, hey, you know what? I have one device. I have one device that I'm going to take with me to work or vacation or whatever. And then when I get home, I plug it in and theoretically, potentially get more power out of that same device. So it's, yes, you're paying for it, but what you're getting from it, a lot of people actually prefer.
I mean, there are also a lot of people that have hybrid lifestyles these days, right? Like I work with a bunch of when I'm not here, I work with game developers, and there's a bunch of people who need a giant GPU when possible, but also go into an office a couple of days a week. So you have a couple of days in the office where you're doing design meetings and reviews and stuff like that, and then the other 2 days a week you're at work at home, and you want a giant GPU plugged into that laptop, and like being in a situation where you have to maintain multiple computers is a pain in the butt, and like not a valuable use of your time if you're in a business situation. So I get it. I get why these exist. I just wish they were less fiddly. The fact that these are now the TB5 stuff is supposed to be hot swappable in a way that's meaningful and works is exciting to me.
Theoretically, right? I haven't tested it. I mean, Thunderbolt 5 has been out. There's actually a lot of really good Thunderbolt testing that Mark Hochman does on PCWorld.com. He manages a roundup for Thunderbolt docs, and I know he's done some Thunderbolt 5 testing. I think some of them there are in there, right, Elena? Are you familiar?
I'm not as familiar with his full
I believe he has some
currently.
Thunderbolt 5 docs in there. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of testing to be done. I'm excited. I feel like in the PC space, other than like scented stuff, which is just kind of a fun little side thing. Like I feel like this is the dragon I'm going to be chasing for years and years and years.
Yeah,
is like one dockable solution that rules them all.
Yeah, I mean, the issue really is, and this is a separate rant that Will and I have discussed offline before, is the whole like Thunderbolt implementation, getting that out there in a way that is, I wouldn't say uniform, but maybe consistent enough that people understand what they're getting when you see it, and it's just not quite there. I'm hoping Thunderbolt 5, finally 5, improves on this experience.
The fifth one.
But
before it was kind of a...
Because the thing is that if it could deliver on everything that we want from it, then I think some of Will's complaints will be addressed. And maybe he will soften his stance a little.
We're 10 years in on this technology at this point. And
I think more than that.
I mean, okay, there were really bad solutions before that. But I mean, the rise of Thunderbolt was what, like 2012, 2011, something like that?
Yeah, I don't.
It's not gotten better. I think actually those early solutions that were simpler were actually a lot more user friendly in a lot of cases. So I don't know.
So at least according to Wikipedia, I don't have a Gordon fountain of knowledge here that I could ask, but February 2011, it was produced, so 14 years ago. Designed by Apple and Intel. I forgot that Apple was a part designer of that.
Once again, Apple leading the PC experience.
Oh, yeah. Actually, that is weird. Okay, that is funny.
Found the Apple shill in our group.
Yeah.
Well, they needed, Adam's always been a big Apple fan. They needed an external bus connector since FireWire was clearly on the wane. And
FireWire 800 was awesome.
Remember,
no one loves it.
Intel and Apple were really tight back then. Apple represented the hope for the PC laptop market because they had transitioned to the MacBook at that point.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the other thing. Going back to our previous segment, about Intel being on the ropes. God, could you see a world where Intel sells off Thunderbolt?
I don't. Is there anything to sell? Isn't it an open? Is it a private?
I don't think it's.
I don't know
open.
what the structure is for Thunderbolt.
Well, I know like the USB 4 essentially has the same like spec and throughput, but I think Thunderbolt specifically is a closed system, right? I could be wrong.
I think you might be confusing. The implementation is kind of like you choose your own adventure, which is why it's so fiddly.
Yeah, they I mean they could sell the business off making the chips, but I don't think
because USB 4 is pretty much Thunderbolt 4, all intents and purposes.
Yeah, I don't. Oh, here, royalty situation. Yeah, it's a royalty-free standard to OEMs and chip manufacturers as of 2017 to boost adoption of the protocol.
I mean, but Intel still
USB 4.
Yeah, but Intel still really puts it out. I mean, you get it on a sticker on your laptop sometimes. You know what I mean? So it's just like I feel like Intel still really pushes it. So I guess I don't know. I have the background. Maybe I'll reach out to Intel and ask.
Yeah, the problem fundamentally is we need a new spec that just fixes the problems with Thunderbolt and a USB 4, and uses probably a USB 4 cable. Just to keep it simple, right? Just make nice. Somebody needs to make a new spec. That's the solve for this
put
problem.
that on USB IF. Perfect.
Yeah.
There we go. Problem solved. Well, yeah.
Because that's crystal clear as well.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well,
that's how we got USB 4.
So anyway, keep your eyes peeled on PCWorld and hopefully over Retro Game Core to test these Thunderbolt 5 eGPU enclosures and hope for the best. Hope for the best. Now, I think we finished off. We switch over to Q&A. If you got a question right now, put them in the chat and at the Full Nerd Network. If you are watching or listening to this later, leave a comment, sure, in the video. I might see them, I might not. Or the best thing to do is hit the link in the description to go over to Discord. We got fine folks over there, but there is one particular channel where you can put in questions at any time, 24/7. It's open all day, all night. You can put a question in there, and hopefully we will get to it on the following show. I guess the first one comes in from Adam Patrick Murray that we haven't addressed yet. Why did the channel change to the Full Nerd Network? What is this?
Oh,
what
weird.
happened?
The channel name changed.
Yeah, why did the channel name change?
It's almost like there's more podcasts coming.
Yeah, well, so yeah, I was going to talk about this last week, but we had the Hall of Fame stuff, so I didn't want to get
somebody got upset,
bogged down here.
Yeah.
So the idea is that the Full Nerd is kind of not transitioning like this. There's the channel, like the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It's going to be a network of podcasts, including an upcoming Linux one, and so the Full Nerd podcast is still always going to be the main podcast. We're always going to be talking about PC hardware. It's like that's not going to change. But I wanted to address, in a way, a way to spin up other podcasts where we can also nerd out on stuff. So I was like, oh well, it kind of makes sense to have a Full Nerd network. The podcast, which I'm not gonna spoil the name of it yet. Has nothing to do name-wise as the Full Nerd. So
I mean, there are nerds in it.
There are nerds in it. We are nerding out about Linux. So I was like, okay, how do we encapsulate both of that? I mean, I guess we could have just made a whole new YouTube channel for it, but I would rather have like the network of nerdy stuff together.
When a YouTube channel has been around for a while, it goes through some exciting changes, Adam, and it goes from being a young adolescent YouTube channel into a flourishing adult YouTube channel.
Yeah, we're reaching maturity. Actually, here's a good analogy. Mark Heinz says, "Is it going to be a town of content?"
No, that's a registered trademark.
That's a registered trademark, but it's the same general idea, right?
Yeah.
It's a Full Nerd network of content. Yeah. Yes, we have the Full Nerd podcast, which is part of
anchor.
that.
That's the anchor tenant of the
anchor
network.
Yeah. So
as a word person, I would say this goes beyond a network. It is a universe.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Oh no, do I need to change the name again? Full Nerd Universe.
No, you change the name, you deprioritize the algorithm. You change the name too much.
But yeah, so that's the idea. Like how do we move forward with what we're doing here and nerd out about other stuff? I mean, yes, we can talk about Linux on this podcast, but I didn't want this to become the Linux podcast.
No,
like
nobody wants that.
Yeah. What this new podcast is going to be its own thing, and we don't have any plans right now. But I mean, you could see a future where we nerd out about other stuff.
We do have another plan actually. Because
do we?
Because the thing that I did on Friday is going to be on there too, but it is a different thing too.
Oh,
right?
yeah. So standalone interviews.
Yeah.
We wanted a way to have standalone interviews on there. Right now, they go on the PC World channel, but it actually could work on the Full Nerd Network channel and have standalone interviews, other podcasts, anything we could nerd out about. I mean, we're not going down this yet, but I mean, right now it's technology and specifically PC hardware stuff. But I mean, we could, who knows, maybe in 10, 20 years, we're also nerding out about, food or Labubu's or
Brian the Fifth.
I don't
asks, is there going to be a full BSD podcast? And I think that's an unequivocal no.
No. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, it'll make more sense when we have that other podcast on this channel. But yeah,
there's no such thing as a bad idea, but
that one.
Yeah, no.
Maybe we have a eGPU podcast. Russ, me and you. We just talk about eGPUs. That'd be a boring podcast.
All the one episode a year, all the eGPU news from Computex.
We just check in and be like, hey, does it still suck? Yeah, it still sucks. Okay.
Yeah. I'm optimistic though. Are you still optimistic?
Yeah. I haven't been flogged yet enough.
I'm sorry. I feel like I've broken both of you. You're both so fresh-faced and excited about this, and I came in with my grumpy old man.
It's fine. Okay. Anyway, we're gonna get to some other questions now. Do you
want a question? I got a question queued up.
Oh, you have a question?
Yeah. Will Smith asks.
Okay, please.
How many beaver nuggets do you think Adam Patrick Murray can fit in his mouth?
Is that a question we want to answer on the show?
I'm just saying it's.
Apparently, yes. The bag has come closer.
I just moved it closer in case you want to give the people what they want. I bet there was one person said 17. I think that they might dissolve enough as you put them in that it's infinite. Actually,
I'm worried that if I try it right now, it would kill my ability to finish out the podcast.
Maybe we do that at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, maybe we do that at the very end,
Okay,
or something. I don't know. I'll think about it. That's also a lot of sugar.
I mean, I don't think. I know the Heimlich just in case anything bad happens.
Yeah, I don't want to choke. That is a funny question. We'll get back to that one.
If I put the floor on the bag, does that make it more or less enticing to you? The bag on the floor.
It's actually this bag has been on the floor. Yeah. Spoilers. Okay, I'm going to go over to Discord now. Magical Flying Fox, a friend of the show and actually mod over on our Discord, says, is Tom's Hardware going under a paywall, the canary in the coal mine for written content, or will PC World save us all with free written content, written PC news for the masses? Actually, I forgot I was going to save that one for when Brad's around, the official spokesperson for PC World. But actually, I mean, we could talk about it now here too. Elena, what do you think about Tom's going behind a paywall? And I mean, they're not the first. Obviously, Verge has a paywall now. I mean, it seems to be a hot new thing. What do you think about it? And also, is PC World going behind a paywall?
So I will leave the discussion of what PC World is up to Brad. I do think it's worth revisiting this question when he is here. But I would say from a general perspective, to me, it's not so much a canary in a coal mine. I think it's more a sign of just how bad the landscape is for publishing, that so many publishers have tried for so long to stay free because that's what people expect now. But the advertising revenue is apparently not there, right? The affiliate revenue is not there. And so for a company to do that, to me, it's a signal that they've exhausted their ability to maintain just wide open access to everything. And now they're having to paywall some of it. I would say that we have done ourselves no favors. As this is when I get on my soapbox, we have done ourselves no favors as a worldwide community to expect everything to be free when it comes to information. And I don't mean that in the sense that information shouldn't be disseminated widely. I think that there are levels that we expect that cannot be sustained with no income to the people who produce that information or content, or find that information and then provide the content to other people. Like something like an AP Newswire type thing, like you get the basic outline. I think that should be free. Like people should know that the building is on fire, right? Mm-hmm. That is not something that should be gate kept and paywalled. But if I remember right, Tom's isn't paywalling everything. They are, I think, specifically doing it for some features, and I think maybe reviews. I for some reason it's escaping me, but I know it's not the whole site. Like news is still available. And I think it's basically their way of saying like, hey, if you support what we do, like the in-depth work that we do, please actually also support us so that we can continue to do this. And I think that's a fair ask. I think that's in some ways a little, this I'm like really claiming on my soapbox now. I think it's
Please.
a little unfair that we are willing to pay for like Patreon subscriptions and YouTube like subscriptions and Twitch subscriptions for individual content creators who deserve that support. But I think there's something weird to me that we're not willing to support people that we support. Sorry, we're not willing to support people that we follow at corporations, right? Like there's something in our minds that we're like, oh no, we're giving money to the man. And so we refuse because, they're just, money grubbing people. And it's like, well, if you like our content on PC World, if you like what we do on The Full Nerd, like we appreciate every single time somebody donates something or subscribes to the digital magazine and things like that, because it does actually support our work, right? And so I feel like Tom's is more of a signal that like these large media corporations that people take for granted and do still put their trust in are starting to falter because people aren't willing to support them the way that they'll support individual content creators. And I think that's just unfortunate.
And you're right, because it would also feel different. Like a paywall feels different than if Tom's came out and said, hey, we have an official Tom's Hardware Patreon, which feels weird because usually Patreon is a solo creator kind of thing. But like even me, like I'm like, ooh, that feels weird that a corporation would have a Patreon, right? Like, and I've seen other people say that too. Like, why do you think there's that disconnect?
I think that people believe that corporations are able to fund themselves, and so they shouldn't be asking for like grassroots type support. And I understand where that comes from, but I think that these older perceptions just aren't as applicable because people really just don't understand how media used to support themselves. Like when you opened up a newspaper and you saw like a full page ad, that was funding the newspaper. When you opened up the newspaper and you saw the obituaries and you saw the classified ads and you saw the personal ads, that supported the newspaper. But a lot of that has gone to other places, right? Like you pay separately for a Hinge dating app subscription. You pay separately to, maybe you don't even have to because you can put your items for sale on like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist if you still are old school and other things like that, right? So they're not getting that revenue, right? Magazines used to have print issues, and so you would pay for a subscription. And even still, you'd see full page ads from like when I worked for Maximum PC, it was, Corsair and all like the Silverstone, all the normal, brands you expect to see. All that helped underwrite the publication, basically. But advertising has dropped out a lot because now they can go directly to the consumers. They can have their own YouTube channels. They can do their own outreach. They are working with individual content creators because people perceive them as being more trustworthy, right? Although, like, that's a whole separate conversation we can have. Russ is giving the smile that I know he knows what I'm talking about. And so the landscape has changed so much, but I think the perceptions of like even like it's weird because even like younger people I feel like carry these perceptions that they weren't even alive for. Like the big days of print were long gone by the time most of them were born. So
they were gone by the time I started working in print in 2000, right?
Yeah, a lot. We were already starting to struggle.
Yeah.
It was starting to because as the digital like revolution, whatever you want to call it, was spinning up, print was spinning down. And so for most of us sitting in this podcast, like our career, like I would come into a publication and I would hear from the old timers all these stories of like when like the money was flowing and how they had these big lavish parties and offsites and things like that. And meanwhile, I'm just like, so you're taking away my sign-on bonus, okay? Because you had a bad year, got it. And like it's just been I don't know.
I mean, if you look at the I love the internet. We all know that. The rise of the internet, the one thing that the tech companies that are all kind of flailing right now have been really, really good at is racing to the bottom in every market that they enter. So like you looked at Google buying DoubleClick in 2002 or whenever that was, and a display ad on CNET in like 1997 to 99 was $75 CPM. So that's like a 75 That means the advertiser paid CNET $75 for every 1,000 people that viewed that ad, which is
Clicks per mil.
clicks per mil, meaning
Million.
the Latin for 1,000.
Is that what that is?
That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Today I learned.
and over the last 25 years, that $75 CPM for a premium ad on a high value website has gone to a fraction of a cent. Fractions of first it was fractions of a dollar, then it was fractions of a cent. And now we've reached a point where, because Google and ChatGPT and the AI companies have stopped, like in the old days, you would say, okay, I'll let Google scrape my stuff. I'm going to let Google make a full copy of the internet that they can use to generate search results, because they also give me a bunch more traffic than I would get otherwise. Because when people search for best laptop review, it goes to a PCWorld page, and then I get money based on millions of people coming to that review page when they need laptops. And that worked great for a really, really long time. And now, as we see the shift to AI, Google's just pulling all of those results out of the page on PCWorld and Wirecutter and Tom's and all the other places that do this kind of content, and they summarize it badly, and then nobody gets any traffic off of it. And we're seeing whole swaths of industries start to realize that, oh God, things are bad. This is like, it's happening in games, it's happening in tech, it's happening in print, it's happening everywhere. And as a result, anything you want to continue to exist is going to have to find new ways to make money, because no companies continue to make content for free. Like it's not the way business works. As Gordon always used to say, companies do what's best for the companies, and like that's just the way things are.
Yeah.
And it's a direct appeal basically to the people that they know are fans or, do appreciate the content. And as Will is just pointing out, like, we are seeing this first in the written word because that's easier to scrape and summarize. But if AI keeps progressing the way it has, I wouldn't be surprised if YouTube creators are going to have the same problem at some point, where AI is going to be able to like just go through a video, like try to summarize it, and then just say like, here, you don't have to watch the video. You don't even have to click.
So here's my supercut of the 25 reviews of this handheld,
Right.
of the same handheld, so you can get all 25 people that are the top 25 creators in this space.
Yeah.
And
So Russ, how are things going with you? I'm just kidding. No.
Good. No, but this is a valid point. I've seen this on my own. Like YouTube has this thing in the background which will say, "Hey, this person's using your content," and sometimes it'll be AI generated posts. Be like, "Hey, here are the top 5 handhelds right now." It'll get thousands of views, and it's just an AI creation, but using footage from all the other from the other creators and stuff. So I'm already seeing it on my end.
Yeah, and you're somebody who has come out to you don't deal with sponsorships on your main YouTube channel. You do have a website, which are mostly like guides and stuff like that. You do keep that up to date.
But no ads on that either.
No ads on that. You do have a Patreon. I'm actually a member of your Patreon. I give
you very much.
With the $3, I think, monthly. So I think that's worth what it is. But yeah, like, I mean, what is that for you? Do you feel like you need to figure out some other way to keep things sustainable, or?
Yeah, I think I have a different approach to it, just because, I'm coming from like a different perspective. I was retired military, and as I retired, I went into this whole YouTube thing. And so I never really thought about that perspective of it. For me, it was all about what value can I provide? And so it's always been create so much value that people just want to pay you back and give you a little bit. And so that's the same thing with my Patreon. I have a Patreon, it's $3 a month, but I actually don't provide anything to those Patreon members other than just, it's a thank you thing. It's like saying, hey, if you'd like to support me, you can, but you're not going to get anything different than anybody else does, just because everything's available for everyone. It's a different approach, I think, just based on what a lot of people have had to just kind of come to terms with in terms of ads and figuring out how to manage some older kind of structures and the way that things were created. I just kind of came into it fresh, and I was like, well, I'll just push all that away and not have to deal with the conflicts, not do any sort of integrated ads in my videos or any sponsored content, and just see if that provides enough value. And I know that for someone at my level, I've just hit 700,000 subscribers not long ago.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Nice.
And
I am
growing.
making probably a quarter that my peers are at this level. just in terms of revenue and stuff. But it's okay. I can feed the family, and that's good enough for me.
It's really interesting because there's always been a melange of revenue sources for media, right? Like if you look at the magazine days when I was at Maximum PC, we had three main revenue sources. We had advertising, we had subscriptions, and then we had newsstand sales. And the company doesn't make this magazine, so I'm going to give you numbers. These are real numbers.
Ooh.
An annual subscription was about $30 if you got the CD version, or $12.99 if you got the discless version. On both of those were basically break even for the company. We were paying, we were selling those subscriptions to increase the number of people who had the magazine in their hands so that we could charge a certain amount for the advertising in the magazine. The magazine advertising revenue, that was probably 20% of the revenue for the company, for the magazine.
20%, only 20%.
It
Wow.
was relatively small because profit, because the cost of producing those magazines and shipping them was fairly expensive because the United States is large. If you're talking about a UK magazine, this entire structure works differently because the whole thing is the size of New England. The advertising was a huge chunk of revenue, right? We made a ton of money on advertising, and that was half the pages in the magazine were ads typically for a 100-page issue. And we adjusted the subscription offer to keep the sweet spot for the number of people we could guarantee ads would see the ads based on the number of subscribers and newsstand sales we had. And then the newsstand sales was like a solid 25 to 40%, depending on the magazine that we were selling, because we sold those issues were $10 a pop. Same magazine, same disc that you could get for $30 for the whole year, or $12.99 with no disc. People would pay, and of course, there's more middlemen on the magazine, on the retail distribution side, because you have to pay the shipping, and then there's usually some mob attached company that distributes the magazines to Kroger and newsstands and a bunch of other stuff along the way. But still, there was a big chunk of net profit for the company every month, and now we're in a place where, unless you're this biggest or second biggest content site in a category, you're not going to get ads that have any value at all. Right? That's the reality that we live in today. And so we're seeing sites that are even like The Verge, which is a highly rated tech review site and coverage site.
Highly trafficked. Lots of, like, number one and number two in a bazillion categories are paywalling content, high value content, because they're looking at their ad revenue collapsing. And
everything's collapsing.
Yeah, it's super bad. So yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, that's it. Everything sucks.
We're doomed. Can't always get the timing right on Zoom. Where I'm like,
it's
is
hard.
it no. So I just want to emphasize for people listening. So I think there's like this perception too that like anybody who does advertisements, who takes sponsors, that it always invites the question of, are you on the take, right? Are you on the take? And this is not to say anything against the individual creators who are like, you know what, I want to seem like 100% that like this is my opinion, this is not influenced by anybody, because I respect that. I understand exactly where it comes from, because I fully also understand that there's that perception out there. But I think Will's explanation of this shows you just how fragile that ecosystem was. Because in the old days, you had a very hard separation between editorial and the sales side. So circulation and sales and all of that was on the business side, and they did not interact with us on the editorial side. We often would get very cranky if they tried.
Typically, they'd go through an editorial director. Or an
they have to go through filters.
There's one point of contact, and then stuff runs downhill, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as circulation numbers shrink, your advertiser power starts to shrink. As the advertisers start pulling out, that causes, you to have to force you to downsize your staff potentially, which means it's harder to create the content that you need to fill. As the shrinkage happened from going to print to digital, and also being able to buy online, bookstores started to collapse. So Borders went out of business. Barnes & Noble shrank a lot. A bunch of other book chains closed. And so then your newsstand reach also shrank. Grocery stores, other places that you'd be able to pick up that kind of thing also reduced their their square footage available, things like that. So all of that ecosystem, just like the whole floor collapsed. And so I feel like, to go back to the original question, I feel like these paywalls are a sign that we're seeing how the digital landscape is set up, which was largely still carrying forward this model, is collapsing as well, because again, the AI summaries are creating problems. People still have that ingrained sense of mistrust around corporations, not realizing that, again, it is the business model for an individual creator is so different than when you have multiple people doing different roles. Like at PCWorld, we have our editorial team, we have our video team, but we also have the business side, and we have vendors that we work with and people we have to pay and all those other things. And that is so different than when you have like maybe a team of 1 to 4 people at most. But even then, it's like, if you're somebody, and Will can talk more about this, if you're employing other people, then you have to make sure your revenue stream is guaranteed, because it's one thing for you to be like, okay, like it's just me, I can eat beans and rice this month, even though like, cause it's like the income isn't, levels aren't consistent from month to month. But if I have to pay 3 other people and they're making their living and I have to make sure that they're good, then like maybe I will have to start doing these other things that I wouldn't normally do, because I'm taking care of these people. I want to make sure that they're good if they're working for me, right? So there's a lot of complicated stuff that people don't think about when they look at these things. And they're like, oh, they've paywalled, like they're just, grubbing for money. It's like, no, that's kind of a sign. Maybe not canary in a coal mine. I think the canary's dead already, honestly. This is the first sign of people having to ask for help to get like workers in the coal mine out before they die of what is it? Coal dust poisoning, whatever it's called.
I got the black lung pop.
Yeah, there you go, Papa.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about advertorials and ads. Like, one of the things about in the magazine days, one of the ways you could tell a magazine was healthy is if it had a buttload of ads, right? A Vogue September issue with 400 pages and 350 pages of ads means that Vogue is going to be around for a long, long time. The PC Gamer issues from back in the day that were 250 pages at Christmas time, also hugely successful for the magazines. Now, there's a couple of things people are talking about advertorial, and one of the big differences between a traditional publisher and working as an independent creator is that when I worked for Future and I was working on Maximum PC, I never once talked to an advertiser, right? I would talk to my publisher and the ad sales folks sometimes, and they would ask me questions like, hey, are you going to have a problem if we get this mail enhancement ad? This is not a real example, just to be clear. Hey, we have a podcast. We have somebody interested in advertising on the podcast. Are you okay doing mail enhancement ads? I'm like, no, we do not want to do mail enhancement ads for the podcast. Because A, I don't think I can make Gordon not snicker throughout the entire thing. But B, once we open that door, it's going to cause the downstream consequences that are bad, right?
Well, but Gordon's argument to that was always, well, then you do have some sort of editorial control, that you've already crossed that line by saying you're not going to. Like he was like, if church and state should never talk, then they should never talk.
Gordon.
I know he said that. He said it, but
Gordon was a little bit of a libertarian about stuff sometimes.
But Gordon is also the same person who told us that we couldn't swear in the podcast.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's censorship.
Exactly.
But for example, at Future, like I was the editor-in-chief for 5 years of Maximum PC, and I talked to advertisers. I talked to people who advertised with the magazine, but I never talked with the people on the advertising teams, right? I always talked with the editorial folks, and I would often find out that we had an ad from somebody that we were covering, like when I got the issue the same time everybody else did. I didn't know what ads were in the magazine on a month-to-month basis. It didn't even show up on our map of what pages went where in the magazine.
Oh, because it was just blank.
The flat plane. Yeah, it was just blank. The advertorial stuff. We had advertorial stuff in our magazine that was paid for by sponsors. We had a whole team at Future that we never interacted with that wrote that advertorial content. When I started doing the Tech Pod and we were thinking about taking advertising early on before we decided not to do it, because it's for many of the same reasons Russ said, it's just a lot of extra overhead, and often it works out and sometimes it doesn't. When we were talking to people about what rates we could charge and stuff like that, it was me, the same person making the content, talking to the advertisers in the same way that almost every influencer on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or wherever is doing. Like you're having those conversations because you're not paying somebody $150,000 a year to manage your ad business for you when there's little or no ad business. You have to make an insane amount more money if you're going to pay that overhead. So it's the influencers having those conversations and being influenced by the advertisers. They know where the money comes from.
And I would say it's translated to the other side as well, because a lot of companies, the marketing and advertising and PR person can be the same person.
Yeah.
So like you're already talking to somebody for PR reasons, but then the advertising part of it gets brought up as well. So
anyway,
yeah, it's all compressing in a weird way.
People have weird perceptions of this stuff, but also I'm going to tell you, if you have content that you love and they're asking for money and you want it to continue to exist, then let's put it another way. Had a Nantech had a robust subscription service that generated millions of dollars of revenue a year from all the people that viewed a Nantech every day, I think a Nantech would probably still exist, right? Ars Technica's subscription program carried it through a lot of really dark times. Penny Arcade's subscription program carried it through a bunch of dark times. Giant Bomb's subscription program carried it through a bunch of dark times.
I mean, now Digital Foundry being independent, like I really hope they can figure stuff out too. But yeah, so.
As a creator, I would much rather work for the people that are consuming the content that I make than somebody who's trying to influence the people who consume the content that I make.
Yeah, so a lot there. Wow, we went really long on that question.
Sorry,
I told you I have a soapbox.
It's good. I don't know if people are finding it interesting, but I think it's good to keep that stuff transparent and kind of talk about it from our side too, because I think a lot of people don't fully understand the situation.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, it is really funny. I know we need to move on, but it is, just to piggyback off of Will, it is really funny to me that the number, and I'm going to preface this by saying there are many, many individual content creators who have very high integrity, who really care about, making sure that what they put out there is something that they fully believe and is not influenced by anybody else. That said, I think it's hilarious that the perception is that all individual content creators are that level, even though they have direct interfacing, like they directly speak with advertisers and sponsors. And it's the flip for us. And we have the perception that we're on the take, even though all of us in editorial only ever talk to the non-advertising side for the most part.
I mean, there's a thing there with personality driven. Sorry, Elena. But
it's okay.
People trust the people that they like when they watch them on YouTube or TikTok or listen to the podcast or whatever, which I totally get. Like, that's the foundational parasocial relationship that makes personality driven content really compelling and makes people listen to this kind of stuff. But you have to, you have to be aware and use judgment about who you follow and who you trust.
Absolutely. And my final thing was just that I think it's mostly hilarious because I can speak as being a managing editor for over a decade in print, that I was the final eyes on issues. Like, I would literally be standing in the the production area, looking at the final blueprints, the digital proofs, and I was the only one who would actually see the advertisements at that stage, because before that point, because basically production blended the two, right?
Yeah.
And there would be times I'd be going through those final pages, just making final last check, because it's print. Once it's printed, you can't take it back. And I would look at an advertisement and I'd be like, I don't know if we actually want that in here. I better make sure somebody knows, because there's some kind of weird conflict, or it slipped in and it wasn't appropriate kind of thing, right? Because again, the two teams are working separately, right? And I would have to flag that to my editor-in-chief or the publisher. And there was a couple of times where we actually would have to hold the issue because we had to work something out, because nobody had seen it until that point.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough when I was there to have a production manager on Max PC that was also a PC nerd. So he would be like, oh, we shouldn't have this ad for a Corsair thing across from this review of a Corsair thing, right? And he would just know to flip the pages a couple forward or back for us. Mm-hmm. And I guess you're right. When I would go up and approve the finals, it was spreads with both the ads on the other page. But that was the only time I ever saw them.
But sometimes we would see it.
Yeah.
At that point, it's already set. It's not like we were involved in the commission of the ad or anything like that. Speaking with anybody, it was just more like those two shouldn't be next to each other, or do we really want this male enhancement thing in here? I thought we said we weren't doing
Go
that.
back to that again.
Yeah. I mean, look, you have no idea. There's two industries that spend an insane amount of money on advertising, gambling and male enhancement. And like, if like
100%.
thank God Hims finally came around and made classy male enhancement ads, because a lot of them were just like, hey man, and it would be a picture of like a photoshopped sad droopy banana.
Okay, all right.
And like you'd be like, no, I can't. That is obviously supposed to represent something that we do not want in the magazine, because we're going to get hundreds of
It's just a
emails that are
banana.
angry that their
I love
kids
bananas.
saw
What's
a
wrong
wiener
with
banana.
bananas?
That's all I'm saying.
I love bananas. Bananas are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Hims, I guess. I don't know, man.
Okay. Yeah. We can couch this for now. Plenty more to talk about when Brad's back. I'll say the last part of it is there's a wrinkle even when it comes to video, because when I started early on, there was that separation of church and state to the point where they sold video products and they just dumped it on us, and I was like, oh my goodness, why did you sell this? Like, there was no in between in video. There was, at least it sounds like, for the production magazine kind of stuff, but like for video, at least here when I started, there wasn't really an in between. So the salespeople would sell it, and then all of a sudden just be like, "Hey, we sold this. You got to fulfill it." And we're like, "What is this thing?" So like I became a lot of that firewall then, to be like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
well this is something on video side that we feel okay doing, versus not." But also, yeah, like the salespeople, they didn't have good ideas. They would come up with the stupidest ideas.
Burn.
Oh God,
This
yeah.
is, I mean, but this is management is the interface between the people who are on the ground making the content and the people on the ground selling the ads.
Yeah,
That's why they pay us the not big bucks.
Yeah. Anyway, we have some actual
hour later.
PC hardware questions to get to. Friend of the show,
Sorry.
Great Mighty Daddy, says, I can't just get away from AM4. Oh, I got to get that AM4. I am looking to cobble together a modest AM4 5600X system using spare parts for a PC to replace my daughter's old i3 8100 based HP Pavilion gaming PC. Wow, well, that's an upgrade. It rolls downhill though, so it's good. As most PCs that have been in service for a while, she's configured through Windows 10 install, apps, and so forth. Rather than go through the hassle of cloning a drive or doing a fresh install and trying to move data and reinstall apps, do you think Windows 10 would be resilient enough to boot in the new AMD system if I just pulled the oh no.
Yeah, you should do this. I've done it. It works. Move on. That's the end of the question. Once it boots in, you just open up Device Manager and delete all the stuff that's grayed out because it didn't detect it, and then it's fine. It's science. Why is everybody making those faces? This is a good choice. Windows 10's incredibly resilient. Year of Linux.
Well, I mean, I'd say there's a couple of things here. Windows 10, I mean, I think you've followed us enough to know Windows 10 is end of life, so hopefully you have a robust, way to figure out what keeping your daughter's PC safe looks like on the internet, unless it's
Just to unplug it from the internet. That's the best way to keep it safe.
So who knows? Maybe they don't get into that. But I don't know, man. I listen. If it's your daughter and it sounds like she's just gaming, so would she even know the difference if she had a kind of a schmuzzed up old
I did this with my daughter's
install?
PC when it broke during the pandemic, and it was fine.
Yeah, so I think
Intel to AMD, though.
Yeah. I don't know, man. But it's different for me. I wince because I rely. I mean, sure, I have the gaming PC, whatever. But for work machines, I rely on them to run exactly how I want it to run. And so I'm a clean install kind of person. Rip that Band-Aid off. Do a clean install. I would never drop in a drive. But
for me,
that's just me. I think I'm too far on the other side.
For me, if Roblox crashed a little bit extra and she stopped spending as much time with it, that would be a double win.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
I will say, actually, I did do. There is one exception for this. I actually did do an upgrade to the motherboard, but it was the same company. It was the same line. It was it was Asus ROG Strix, but it was a chipset upgrade. So from X670 to X870. Even then, it's still kind of winced,
It's fine.
But yeah, I don't know.
Windows is robust.
Elena, please. I feel like you're going to give somewhere, a more modest approach. What do you think?
I feel like we've been shutting Russ out of the conversation accidentally, and I would like.
No,
his
I'm
take
gonna get
first.
it. Okay, yeah, Russ, what do you think? Are you just a let it ride kind of guy, or you go fresh?
I think time is money, and the amount of time and research and everything to maintain and kind of finagle all of that, all the hoops, for me, it's not worth it. I think that I would probably just, get your daughter something nice and shiny.
A clean install. But they're arguing that it would take more time to, do a clean install, re-download all the apps, sign into everything.
I think that's part of the learning process of being a new PC owner, right? And I think that's a good teaching thing for the child, is just to kind of walk through it. I do it all the time with my son. He's 16 now, but he's gone through, 4 or 5 PCs already just because I have like leftover mini PCs after review. I'm like, all right, you got a new computer. Figure out how to get Minecraft back on it and see if you can get your mods going again.
Yeah, it's a teaching moment.
It's like a Bean Dad moment. Hey, here's a can of beans. You're hungry? You don't know about this?
What?
The guy who made the song for the McElroys podcast years ago he got completely canceled by the internet because his kid said, hey, I have a can of beans here. I want to make some beans. Can you show me? I don't know how to work this thing that opens it. She couldn't figure out how to work the can opener. And he's like, well, figure it out. And then he posted this and it escaped containment from his normal community of people that knew that this was a bit. And people got really, really upset with him to the point that like it was really bad. So anyway, Russ's Bean Dad approach is totally viable and valid.
Wow. Okay. Just figure it out, kid.
Yeah.
That's Russ's approach.
Okay. And I always would keep the old computer around and be like, okay, are you ready now to move on to the new one? And he'd be like, and then once he's happy with it, I'm like, okay, cool. And we'll wipe the old one.
Which, I think that's a good way too, right? Like, and actually that's what I do as well in production machines. You keep as much as you can the original one around just in case you need to swap back to it. You don't, completely wipe it yet. But in this case, it sounds like they're literally wanting to pull the same SSD and stick it in the new one. So, yeah,
it's a challenge.
For what it's worth, teaching making them figure it out is how we all learned, right? We got good at this because we wanted to do something that probably our computers couldn't do right or were too slow for or whatever and started monkeying with it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a perfectly valid way to teach your children how to do things.
All right, Elena, I want to hear your take.
I don't have children.
Me neither.
So I don't know if I.
But give
I don't
parental
know.
advice anyway. Yeah. That's what they asked
I
for.
don't
Great
know
mighty
what I would
daddy
do
asked.
with my own children. If I had children, I'm not sure what I would do. I will say that Will's right, that I think a lot of us got into this because our parents didn't do it for us. Like I actually was the person in the household who was basically tech support because I was the only one who had the interest to like poke around and figure out like, how does DOS work? How does Windows 95 work? What can you delete and what can't you delete? How do I reset this whole computer? Things like that. So I think my approach is more of I had a lot of bad experiences with driver issues early on with computers, and so I think that kind of scarred me. I prefer a clean install, but I don't have the risk-taking wherewithal to just be like, YOLO, we'll just wipe this drive.
Oh, there's a new feature. You should try it.
Yeah.
I YOLO'd for the first time.
Yeah.
No, I am very much if I'm not paying for a whole new PC, I can afford $50, $60 for another storage drive. We'll just do a clean install on that drive, transfer over the necessary files from the old drive. Yes, it takes a little bit more time, but it's useful to refresh like on where everything's stored and, see what I can transfer. And that way, if I need to go back to the original drive for maybe some data that's missing or I forgot, it's still there. But now I have this shiny new install that I don't have to worry about potential driver issues. I know Windows 10 is a bit more resilient, but I will say I did try it in the last 3 or so years doing that for a relative, and their PC does act up a little from time to time. So I'm not convinced at the resiliency that people have touted to me.
So I just moved my daughter from the SATA SSD that I YOLO'd 4 years ago, to an NVMe, and I did the clean install, and it was a huge pain in the butt, and she was really upset because all of her wallpapers were gone. And then
Should have made her do it.
I was like, well, where's she going to plug a SATA SSD in today? She's not going to open up the Terra and do it in there because it's pretty tight, let me tell you.
Yeah, but the Terra's pretty.
So I had to open up my computer and run a SATA cable for the first time, which felt dirty in this computer. And then I had to get SATA power because I didn't have one of those plugged in anywhere. Yeah. Uh-huh. Elena's making a face for audio listeners.
I'm making lots of faces and hand gestures because, Will, you could have solved this problem with a $15 enclosure off of Amazon.
Yeah,
or a thumb drive. We've got a couple here on the floor.
So I had one of those enclosures
specifically.
that when I plugged it in, it didn't work, and like it like did the ding 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 connect disconnect thing so much that I was afraid it was actually hurting the drive. So what
did you buy?
Look, it's been sitting in a box in my office for like 10 years.
Okay, that was your biggest problem right there.
Well, I don't want to buy a new one every time I need to do this. So anyway, I had the cable and I plugged it in.
Gloss over it. He wants to gloss over it.
And I just got it in there, and then I had to copy the things over, and it was like 4 megs of files probably that she wanted, like the wallpaper she made. The save games all Steam just took care of, right? Like all that stuff was easy. It was literally just like a couple of megs of files and like 2 videos that she'd captured off of a game she was playing. And once that was done, I was good. It took me an hour and a half to get the PC down off from the underdesk mount, get to where I could open up the back of it to get the power. It was a huge pain in the butt. Anyway.
Oh my God, this is the most Gordon-esque rant, I swear, where it's just like you could have solved this problem with a $15 purchase on Amazon. You could have valued your time for what it actually is. But you wanted to be able to do the dad rant. That's why you chose this path. That's why you chose this path.
The mistake,
I see you, Will.
The mistake I made was not having a big enough drive on hand to just copy the files off of the computer wholesale. And I was like, I'm just going to pull these old SATA SSDs. I don't need to keep them. I have that adapter thing somewhere in my office that I'll dig up if it becomes an emergency. And then when it became an emergency, the adapter didn't work, and it was an emergency because things changed that weren't expected to be changed.
I'm also just really disappointed in you, Will. Like,
you can't always buy your way out of your problems, Elena.
No,
I know this is your solution to everything.
Like for somebody who has such an elaborate setup, I'm so this is actually indicating to me that you don't have a good backup plan set up for your kid, because you have your NAS, you have all these like crazy like homebrew things you've got set up. Why are you not backing up your daughter's like files to her own like thing on the NAS so that if you needed to restore, you could just pull it off there?
Look, she has on the family plan for the Microsoft Live account, and I assumed she'd hit the button that said, "Hey, do you want to use Windows backup? It's really great. You're gonna love it because it hits me like every 3 days." But no, she was like, "I thought this was a scam." No, she said she thought it was a scam, which I respect. No, look, this is how we learn, Elena. Being dad.
You or her.
Both of us at this point.
Somebody in the chat, David says, being a dad sounds hard. Yeah.
Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard.
It's okay. Yeah.
Mixed bag.
Yeah, mixed bag. There you go. Anyway.
Difficulty curve ramps over time, it turns out.
I'm going to call it there. We're going real long, so let's wrap it up. Check back next week for your fix of PC Talk here on the Full Nerd Podcast. Let's do it when the music.
Okay.
Okay. No, we'll do it as a short. Let's do it as
short.
Yeah.
That's what the kids crave,
go
more
look at our vertical content for me sticking as many beaver nuggets in my mouth as I can. Anyway, check back next week for your fix PC Talk here on the Full Nerd. To listen to us on the go, point your
beaver
RSS
nugget.
reader to anywhere where you want to, including Pocket Casts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Deezer, all the fun stuff, whatever. Yeah. Also, go over to PCWorld.com/newsletters with an S /sign up and sign up for the Full Nerd newsletter written by one Elena Yee. It'll come fresh to your inbox every Friday. Elena, can you give us a little preview?
Yes. I will not be covering this challenge in that newsletter.
Good.
Oh, you'll embed it at the end. Give the people what they want.
No.
Adam's face full of beaver nuggets.
Look, not just my boss, but my boss's boss reads this every week. Will I'd like to stay employed?
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Elena. I get it in my inbox, and even though like I know kind of the content you're going to be including, your write-up is always just like chef's kiss. Yeah, good write-up, good stories that you're sharing in there. It's not just a recap of the show, but it's also just other things that you think people who like this show would be interested in as well. Really good stuff. So keep it up. I love it. Also, I want to thank Russ from Retro Game Core to, sitting with us for all these hours. Your stomach is probably really hungry.
No, I'm just so happy to be here. I love doing this. I mean, I watched the show and now I'm just watching it and I can talk to you at the same time.
Are you gonna watch back this episode?
No.
No, you don't. Do you not like to hear yourself?
No, I don't.
But you edit yourself.
I usually don't watch back. I edit myself, but I don't watch back most of my stuff.
Interesting. Okay, well, where can people find you? What do you want people to do? I want to throw money at Russ. How do they do that?
They can just watch youtube.com/retrogamecore and then, subscribe if you'd like. And then I've got retrogamecore.com, which has got all of my guides and whatnot on it as well. I usually try to make a accompanying written guide to go with my video guides, but lately it's been a lot of reviews, lots of tech coming out lately. So I need to get back to making guides.
A lot of cool stuff right now.
Great guides. I use them constantly every time I get a new handheld in, and then it just sits on my shelf. So, yeah, good stuff. Thank you, Russ, once again for coming in. Will, thank you for hanging out and challenging me to put as many.
I didn't challenge. I just had a question. It's a simple question.
It's a good question. Yeah.
We're the only one way to find out.
Only one way to find out. Also, there's only one way to get out of this show, and that is through Alex Estevez. Alex, take us out of here.
All right, everybody. Thank you for hanging out. Remember to be nice to each other out there, and stay tuned for Beaver Nuggets.
Nom, nom.